Spence, member.
Gary Waite, member.
Bill Larson, member.
Tom Wilson, alternate.
Rob and Mike. And we'll start with the review and acceptance of the minutes from the last meeting. I know that Nick.
The rest of your stuff's at your
doing
seat.
some corrections. Was the process, Nick, that you would send out the minutes and you would receive the comments?
Yeah, so I sent out the 10-page minutes that we originally had. Everyone said they were far too long. I got some corrections back from Bill Spence, jotted those down, shortened them to the 4-page ones that you guys have in front of you and that I sent out a couple days ago.
Okay, so the final says remains.
Correct. The most
But it
recent
has been
set.
on the online to read. The latest updated one was on was emailed, right?
Yes.
A couple days.
We don't have it. No.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to review those minutes? And are there any comments further than what we already addressed?
I had a question. I don't know who I asked. And I spoke to a couple other towns that talking about something else. Ours is videotaped or whatever, and is theoretically online.
Correct.
Eventually. Would it be prudent for us in our minutes to indicate just a one-line thing that says a complete whatever of the minutes is available at?
Do you see anything wrong with that, Mark? No?
The only reason I ask is when I was at the meeting in Concord, it was April, whatever that was, and somebody said, it is important to make sure all relevant information is at your meeting and your minutes. That would clearly say everything is available because we just included it all. And that would cover us for anything.
Well, no, it doesn't automatically mean that everything on the video is incorporated by reference in the minutes. It's still a good idea. I mean, why not? If that's strictly by your record, why not?
Why not? It's there. It's there anyway. So what?
But it's not, you can't just incorporate by reference in the minutes. The minutes are the minutes and need to be the hearing record, you know, if you ever vote on something.
That's what I was told when I asked the question to other people is, if it is there, it is not automatically included, but if you at least have it there, somebody can't say that the information was not available to them.
It's a fine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that being the case, then you can include that, I guess.
Okay.
Any further comments on the minutes?
Nick and I were talking some earlier about the kind of finding the right balance so that all the details that you need for the hearing record on an application are still in the minutes versus what can be kind of discussion. And it might be good to look back under the application before you adopt it and make sure that pertinent details are all included. For my part, under regulations number 3, I had asked specifically for the board to weigh in on whether, when you adopted the site plan regulation, you meant to make signs exempt. Your changes hadn't done that, and you agreed that that was an oversight. And I think that's important to be in the minutes to, you know, because I need a paper trail someday. Why are these site plan regs a little different than what you're adopting? And
Is there a particular way you'd like to change that particular line to make that correct?
I would just add some language that, Bamford inquired about the board's, whether the board's intent was to make signs exempt from site plan review. And the board confirmed that that was the intent, that was. And I had also, I think what Nick Simon took the time to discuss what she was hired for, that was me saying, you know, don't take these changes on the site plan reg as me saying, this is everything I recommend, because all I was asked to do to that was add the exempt and minor categories. So there's still some work to do on the site plan regulation.
Okay, but we've got to change this, since it was your suggestion and since it's you talking, then can we get an exact change that's comfortable for you, that Nick can,
I gave you,
well, you're a little loose.
I
I
gave
need
you
some
the one
words.
for the site plan regulation.
Yeah, I only got T. Bamford out of it, I couldn't copy it.
So let's see, T. Bamford asked whether the board's intent was to make signs exempt from site plan review when that's the only change. And the board confirmed that was the intent.
Did you get that, Nick?
And
Secondly,
T. Bamford reminded the board that there are still additional changes that she'd recommend making to the site plan regulations, that she had only been asked to provide a minor site plan review category.
get that, Nick?
And if you add this, then you can get rid of the first two sentences. Add, the board agreed to do a complete review of the subdivision regulations.
You want that, you want to strike the first sentence and put that in?
Strike
instead?
the first two sentences and add that, and then we're okay.
Get that, Nick?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? I need more time. And I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Motion to accept the minutes. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes of the June 13th
Minutes on
planning board meeting are
posted
accepted
once
as
they
amended.
finalize. The last one I see is April.
Well, May should be up there. We'll get those up there.
So you don't put the meeting minutes on.
Do you want to share that with the board?
Yeah, I'm wondering where the meeting minutes are. Then you don't have handouts and I couldn't find it online.
I have an extra handout if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks. And there's no agendas or anything else, and there's nothing online.
There you go. The agenda for this one should be online. Here is a handout.
Thank you.
So we'll start with old business, the continuation of the public hearing for the 8-lot subdivision application from the Waterville Company. Bill, I guess there's been a change. Did you want to go through that change?
Sure. This is a subdivision improvement. Large set, you want that up here, if you ponder that?
Yeah, you can lay it out on the table. All right. This needs a witness on my signature. You solemnly sign.
Yeah.
Well, what we've done, or what I've done, is we've changed this from an 8-lot subdivision to a 6-lot subdivision. And the change is really very simple. There's lot 30 is an existing lot that sits out here at the end of the right-of-way that goes past Brownstone condominiums. And the previous plan subdivided that lot into 2 different, and as I spent more and more time out there walking that lot, it didn't matter how you subdivided it, you ended up with 2 lots that were not very attractive. So what I was doing was I was taking one very, very nice lot, in my opinion, and trying to make it into 2 lots. And it just didn't make any sense. So anyway, I removed that lot 30 from the 3 lots that are subject to the subdivision and have ended the infrastructure development after lot 29.3. I've talked with Mark and we talked with Terry about the fact that if that really changed the submittal that we were giving to you and all of the information that was approved relative to these lots is there. Since
Bill, so that lot 30, the one farthest as you're standing now, all the way to the right,
yes,
is now outside of the subdivision.
it's outside of the subdivision here. It was previously subdivided and it's an existing lot. And it will be,
For sale.
absolutely. Bill,
My
maybe
question was, what will you do with it? It's still for sale.
Might clarify things. I've always kind of looked at this as one subdivision, but actually, as Tara pointed out, it's 3 subdivisions. This is an application for 3 subdivisions.
And now it's an application for 2
Now it's an
subdivisions.
application for 2 subdivisions. So what you've done is just.
subdividing 2 lots.
Yeah,
Correct. And so not much change has changed since that. Since the meeting, we've made that change. We've changed the easement area here, so to make sure it includes the pull-off that Chris wanted for a fire truck. He still wants that, so we're leaving that, and that's included in the easement area. He still wants the fire hydrant there, so that has not changed. We have a driveway permit for lot 29.1, located in about this area that comes off Golden Heights Road. We have, Tara commented that I'd never gotten a driveway permit from here. I think previously when Chris has approved access roads and utilities and so on, we've assumed that that approves of the access off of Town Road. But anyway, yesterday I submitted a driveway permit for this road here that you've previously seen. I don't know the status of
He
that.
signed it.
It-
He signed it yesterday.
It's signed and hidden away somewhere.
That's right here.
It's in the.
Yep.
Back. I want to go back to lot 30 because I pulled up mine.
Okay, just let me finish what has been submitted since the last meeting. Jack McCormick has addressed the driveways, the maintenance, long-term maintenance of the driveways, who pays for that, which is the individual lot owners served by those driveways. He's also addressed the utility lines and the fact that they're maintained by the individual owners. Now, some of these water lines come off existing mains and run to the curb stop, and then curb stops is the service line that goes to the individual lots. Typically, the town has owned the water lines to the curb stops. Because these situations are substantially different than what I've ever done or what I have typically done before. For example, the line that the service lines come off to these 3 lots, the line that goes from the main to the curb stops, the responsibility of maintaining that line is all 3 lots. And then from the curb stop on is the responsibility of the individual owners. So that takes the onus off the town of having any responsibility for maintenance of anything other than what's existing there today.
Okay.
With the exception of the fire hydrant.
Can I go back to lot 30? I just want to make sure that I understand. As I look at the previous map, so lot 30 now is effectively going to be landlocked. If you will. There's no access to.
No, it still has access off this, the existing easement that has always existed off this road is specifically an easement for this lot.
And-
It is an easement, but I mean,
The easement addendum that he provided with the application addresses lot 30.
so they, but you know, they could have to build themselves off of the driveway.
We're taking the driveway right up to the edge of lot 30. This road right here comes right to the edge of lot 30.
Okay. Like the triangle of it. Okay. Not much. Okay.
So
Well, that easement's actually wider there, so there's, the easement area is plenty wide enough for that driveway.
it's typically 50 feet, is it not?
It's 45.
That easement, at the end doesn't seem to be described. It shows in the picture, so it doesn't have any meets and bounds or anything like that. And it's not just a 10-foot wide easement, it has a stub out for a turnaround.
That's probably correct. The 45-foot easement is clear because it's off the old property line. We have widened that as shown on the map. We've specified the width, and it's addressed in the addendum or the amendment to the Moose Run Declaration. The amendment to the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah. Might be described a little bit better. Yeah. And that goes along with the easement over at lot 20 or lot 36 as well.
No, that one's specifically measured width of an easement that is off an existing line. It's a 20-foot easement off the existing property line, and that's shown.
It is shown. It's apparently somewhat confusing to some. I wonder if maybe just an arrow that goes from the property line out to the dash line that says 20 feet or something like that. I realize it reads it, Bill, 20-foot driveway easement, but,
What's confusing?
well, the question came up, is the driveway shown the easement? And is there a 2-foot, say a 2 or 3 foot space between the edge of the easement and the edge of the property line?
No, that's the paved surface of the driveway versus the easement area.
But I wonder if, just to clarify that, an arrow going across from the property line to the dash line to definitely define the easement would be helpful.
Right, if this in being surveyed turned out to be, if this dashed line, where you have the arrow proposed 20-foot driving easement, and you surveyed it, it turned out to be 21 feet, say, from the property line, then it's not clear that it starts at the property line unless you put that line across it with the 20-foot notation. You haven't shown anywhere specifically that it's common sense, but that doesn't help in surveying that it's 20 feet from that property line.
So somebody needs to tell me exactly what you want, because I don't
Yeah, we
understand.
can.
This has been done this way for the last 20 years on every plat
Well, we're
map that
trying
I've
to-
ever
We're trying
submitted.
to do better, I think that's why.
That's fine, just tell me what you want and we'll do it. I mean, it's not a
Yeah,
big
well,
deal.
so you-
I still don't know exactly what you want.
Arrow like that. 20 feet. Easy. That's all, just a clarification. And up here, if you were to try to lay this out, you wouldn't really know. I mean, I can understand what you're saying about following an old property line and so forth, but this box out right here, I wouldn't be able to lay it out. It says 12 by 40,
Yeah, for the pull-out.
I don't know how far back, and, I mean, it's minor
Can I use your
detail.
red pen for a minute?
Sure.
while you have the red pen, I had also asked.
Now, just a minute, one thing.
Well, it is on these, it's still on these, I had asked that there be a notation with those driveway easements saying which lots they are serving.
Say what?
Yeah, it's obvious.
Say who they serve?
Right. So
It's not clear in the amendment and easements that were
it should
drawn?
be clear when somebody looks at the plan as well. So that one is serving
Yeah.
2 lots and the other is serving 3 lots. That, it wasn't clear to me looking at the plans that one of them is not using the driveway easement because it has its own driveway. I think
Okay.
that should be clear to somebody in the,
I see.
considering buying one of the lots and all they're looking at is the plan. It should be very user friendly toward, okay, how am I accessing that lot if I drive in?
Terry, is there plenty of red ink in this pen?
There's plenty of red ink, but that's my only one.
And Bill, this is, all I'm saying is what I sent you, that I drew out on the plan for you last week. That I had sent you these comments on the plan last week. So to be fair, it's not a new request. Could you just, because I reviewed plans that were dated, I think the 5th, and now you have one in front of the board dated the 8th that I haven't reviewed, could you go through the changes? What's new?
I think the major change is that when this lot 30 was subdivided into 2 lots, the driveway came much lower on the bottom, and the force main came all the way down to there. We've shortened up the force main and the location for where that terminates.
That looks like it was done on the July 5th already. I mean, I have a July 5th version of the 6 lot subdivision, but then there's a brand new version here today that I don't know what's different on. That looks like it was done already.
We changed the pavement on the driveways from 2-inch base course to 1-inch finish course to just a 2-inch base course. Those are driveways. There's no regulations in the town regulations for paving. 2-inch base course on a driveway is plenty. So we've done that.
The plans look the same, is that right?
I think they're almost
Just in some of
essentially the
construction
same.
detail?
We changed something so it said driveway and utility easement somewhere to make that clear, but by and large, it was just lopping this off here and making the engineering changes in the termination of the driveway.
And the 10-foot trail easement, which kind of goes down the middle of the driveways and everything else, still exists.
Yeah, it hasn't, yeah, and ties up to what used to be the lower Criterion Trail.
Yeah, I mean, and if at some date, because I've hiked up there and snowshoed up there, we'll still be able to do that.
You can. The biggest problem with that trail is people have encumbered that trail as it goes through the Moose Run subdivision.
Yeah, no,
Yes, I've experienced that.
yeah, but
There's nowhere to go once you reach the
The easement is there.
trail's not. Yes,
The
that's
trail
right.
has been
That's the way to put it.
planted over,
Easement's there, trail is not.
possibly intentional.
no comment. I don't move.
Is there gonna be any enforcement of the easements that are existing?
I beg your pardon?
Is there going to be any enforcement of the easements that are existing? For the
The
trail?
only easement that, for which there's any enforcement is the 10-foot pedestrian easement that runs through Moose Run. And the enforcement of that lies with the Moose Run Homeowners Association.
Okay.
There is no enforcement in the other trails. Those are all subject to a private trails agreement between the landowner and the ski resort. They're not public trails. They're used by the public, but they're not.
Is there
public.
anything the town can do by writing a letter to the Moose Run Association to tell them that the trail is not, the easement's not been maintained and that they need to review that, at least
No,
respond?
it's a civil matter. It's in the homeowners association, it's not public land.
I would have to go and file a personal
That's right,
suit if
with the
I-
homeowners association.
Which, since
Not
they're
a
friends of
town.
mine, I wouldn't do.
Town has no jurisdiction.
So is this the way that the town handles, or that all the easements for the hiking trails
If-
are handled?
If they are on private land, yes. If they are on public land, then we can enforce them.
So basically, there is no enforcement of the easements, for all intents and purposes. I mean,
It's a landowner issue. I don't understand what we're supposed to enforce.
well, I mean, there's easements in the town and that for the cross-country trails, and people have an expectation when they buy here that the cross-country trails are open for their use and available.
Yeah.
And the nuance of
Yeah.
who owns it and who maintains it and how it's done isn't really, if I'm buying, you don't know that. So what I'm saying, is it possible that the town could still write a letter, even though they don't have enforcement power over it, to let them know?
No.
Can the planning board?
If the easement was in favor of the town, if the private landowner had granted an easement to the town of Waterville Valley for that trail, then yes, we could enforce that with a letter from the selectmen, we're gonna use our easement.
So,
But we're not involved
Let me,
in the
let me make
easement.
it simple, all right? If I wanted, if the resort, who actually controls the easement, wanted to actually use that trail, for example, all right? It would be the resort that would then take action that they're going to use that easement and go back to the homeowner. It's not town land, town's not involved. It would go from the resort, my good buddy, right? They would say, I am building a cross-country trail. I am using my easement. It's going right through your vegetable garden. Tough luck. I have an easement. I don't mean to say
but it
that's
was
not
an
the way.
existing trail, correct? I mean, it's an existing trail.
It's whether it's an existing trail or an easement is irrelevant. They have the right. It is their easement.
I guess my concern, and I don't want to get into the nuance of it, but talking in a general perspective, that people have an expectation that the cross-country trails are here and consider it in perpetuity, whether it is or not. And it just seems like a homeowners association can then do what they will, because if they decide not to enforce the easement, allow homeowners to do what they've done, which is utilize the trails for private use. So that's in my mind, that's a problem for all the trails within the valley, because that could happen, from what you're saying, my understanding is, it could happen to any of the trails.
But
In the valley.
there are very few trails that actually have that. All of the existing trails, which are magnificently maintained, all of the existing cross-country trails, for example, that have easements right through other people's property,
Right.
are maintained and are used. There are easements principally to the resort association that go through people's property, and a lot of those are
But they
not-
knew that when they bought the property. I mean,
They
they
knew
knew
that.
there was an easement there.
They should have known.
Yeah.
I know there's an easement, for example, where we are, there's an easement for certain things. All right, there's an easement there. If they're not using it, doesn't matter, there's still an easement there. The easement exists in perpetuity. It's not a town situation.
Okay.
It's between the resort and the homeowner. The resort decides to build the cross-country trail, right, which is their right.
I get it. So is this trail a trail that the resort is interested in, that segment of it, or?
No, there's, when you start reading back through the titles of the town and the easements that exist, there are many easements throughout most of the town. Some of them we have built the trails on, they've been there forever. Others we're changing the trail, moving it to this other side because of water hazard, because
Okay.
of population density, because of whatever it might be, the reason that we have to move that trail. We have to do that at times. We've been trying to move trails around, try to prevent road crossings. We've been doing different things with different trails. And I understand that in the community, it can be hard when we move something because you get used to it being one way and then we have to change it because of whatever that happens. It's very hard to sometimes communicate that change. But we're trying to do what's best for the trail system to keep it maintained as well as we can. So, and I'm dealing with an easement right now that, is guidance on how we can operate the business. And a lot of times the landowners don't know that they have an easement. They don't know that there's an easement in their deed. And you physically have to go and show them that there's an easement for us to be able to do this, what we need to do. So it is a challenge at times, but we look how we do it with the homeowners.
Okay. I still find it problematic that, I mean, in terms of overall viewing how the trails are, maintained and long-term. And the other thing that I'm thinking about is there's a lack of sidewalk connectivity in Waterville. Let me just finish.
I understand.
So
That-
there's a
that's not
I
relevant to this
understand.
discussion.
So the trails help that issue. I mean, help that issue can be utilized as a foil to the lack of sidewalks. Thank you.
Mark, I seem to remember, and maybe some of the other boards remember, there used to be a requirement for a statement on the subdivision plan by the engineer that says these are buildable lots. Is that, I can't find it in here. Is that no longer required?
No, I don't think that it is. I don't remember it being anywhere.
What do you mean by buildable? That the terrain is
Yeah,
suitable
it's
for a house?
suitable to putting a building in. We did run across a case where somebody, not the Waterville company, but some private landowner wanted to subdivide their property. And I think we deemed that you're on such a slope, you couldn't possibly build a house, you couldn't adequately provide for a house and access back up to the road, from that lot.
Mhm.
So I don't know what happened. Did we ever approve that thing?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, I think they.
Tara,
went through
have
it.
you ever seen a statement like that?
Not for a while, but I feel like it used to be in some of the older
Yeah,
subdivision regulations.
There are several lots like that in Waterville Valley.
Mhm.
Where it would be damned impossible to build a house on it.
I mean, the purpose of the subdivision review process is to make sure that you're approving buildable lots. So it's either a matter of asking somebody else to
That's
verify
right.
it or asking for all the details to verify it yourself.
It's a good question.
And just thinking in particular, lot 29.1 and 29, it's access off from the access road. That's a pretty steep embankment all the way along that borderline.
They could do it off Golden Heights Road.
I was wondering if that might be the option. But I think
I was assuming they would do it that way. But
What's the comment, Terry?
on 29.1,
Yeah.
my assumption was that the access would be off on the trail on the north east end of the property.
my assumption was about Golden Heights.
Well, what's the driveway permit?
I think
for?
what
it's showing is.
The driveway permit is for Golden Heights. It is basically in this location here.
Yeah, that was my assumption too. Off of Golden.
It's off Golden Heights Road.
Yeah,
That's showing the driveway from it.
Yes.
Yeah, it went in the
I think
reading.
so.
Yes, and that's what Jim looked at, was off Golden Heights.
That's
This
what-
driveway permit was approved
Right.
weeks ago
Yeah,
by Chris.
Oh, okay.
And then this driveway permit, which was submitted yesterday, has been
Was-
approved by Jim.
Vice Chair.
That's the way I read it. Not that I would.
It's part of the submission.
Yeah.
We have the permits themselves, they're right there.
Okay.
Well, I think you just drew it. We'll make sure.
Hey, Tara, you had some questions about the drainage. I think.
Yeah, that was one thing I couldn't really follow on the plan to review it. Is I wondered if you could run us through how the drainage works on the common drive, where it's going.
On well, first of all, there's not gonna be much drainage in this area here. It's minor. And there's a culvert here to pick up any drainage that comes this way. And this driveway from this point here drains this way. And from this way here drains this way. And then this all drains down here and goes through a major drainage ditch and goes this way.
Goes into the pond, does it not?
Beg your pardon?
Goes into the pond.
Eventually goes into the pond, that's correct.
So is there a swale or is it surface drainage?
There's a treatment swale here.
No, but along the driveway. Is there a swale or is it just gonna be
There's a,
sheet
yeah,
flow on the surface?
if you look at the cross section, you'll see that on the roads. And then on this one here, from this point here, it drains this way, goes into this drainage system here, comes out here, and will actually go this way. Ends up going in the same direction this way.
Goes down through the middle.
From this way, it'll go on the top and it'll end up in this drainage system that comes down and just kind of goes this way.
Okay.
Existing drainage system. And all of that was calculated in the original drainage calculations for Moose Run that Horizon did when that subdivision was done.
Is that referred to somewhere on the plan? So,
I beg your pardon?
is that referred to somewhere on the plan here?
No, it's recorded. It's all,
The original, this was, all of this property was originally approved as part of the Moose Run subdivision, right?
actually, this lot and this lot were approved as part of the Snows Mountain subdivision.
Right. When
Then
was the Snows Mountain subdivision done?
before the Moose Run subdivision by
Oh.
about a year.
Wow.
And it was done because Kathy Chandler wanted to build the
Oh, yes,
Diana
right.
Golden
Yeah,
Adaptive
right, yeah,
Training and
yeah.
Housing Facility here. When we did Moose Run, we encumbered all of this Snows
in
Mountain
that.
property with the Moose Run declaration of bylaws.
All right.
So yes, it is part of the Moose Run subdivision.
So we approved
It's
a
noted on
drainage
it.
plan for this, except that at one time it was a single lot down there and, you know, and was the way it was originally proposed.
Right. The interesting thing is, the drainage plan that was done originally for this anticipated that this property here was gonna be developed with much higher densities
Right,
than they have been, or they're gonna be.
right.
So, you know, the amount of drainage that was calculated to be handled by these drainage areas is less than originally anticipated.
Right.
Those plans are incorporated by reference in the plan notes on.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, I'm.
Someone read them more carefully than I did.
Yeah, well.
While we're on the subject of the Moose Run, what's the relationship between this association and the Moose Run Association in terms of the covenants and agreements that they enter into? Are they bound by the Moose Run?
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
there's only one homeowners association, the
Right,
Moose Run Homeowners
and
Association.
so it governs that as
And it
well.
does govern this. These lots are further covenant to, or have
Right.
further things
Right.
as set forth in the amendment,
Right,
which makes these owners responsible for these driveways,
right,
for example.
And,
In the
and
Moose
other-
Run Association, the driveways that were built there are actually maintained by the homeowners association.
okay.
And so, you know, per the discussions that we had earlier, these set forth that these easement areas are basically taken care of by the people that they serve,
including the water lines,
including the water lines, that's correct.
water and sewer lines.
Force main.
Okay.
Further statements from the public?
You're it.
I figured.
Any further comments? Questions?
I did have one question. Because I don't have a set of plans. The easement for the trail, is it in the driveways or next to the driveways? For the cross-country trail?
Well, first of all, the cross-country trail runs this way along the front of the roads.
Yep.
Here's the underpass,
Yep,
comes up here, goes this way, and goes out onto the National Forest.
It connects to.
That's the
Criterion.
only cross-country trail,
okay,
Existing.
all right? There's the trail that is of some question is a 10-foot wide hiking trail
okay,
that was basically established when Lower Criterion Trail was abandoned per agreement between the water company and the ski area
okay,
Years ago.
12 years ago, whatever it is. And this 10-foot hiking trail comes around, it goes all the way from the cross country, the golf course, by the way.
Yeah.
And crosses Lost Pass Road, comes down around here, comes here, runs adjacent to the existing road out here. And then in this area, it kind of it's a driveway for two people. It's shared in there, and then it crosses a culvert here, and it follows the old Criterion,
okay. So
Lower
the,
Criterion Trail again. And that's a 10-foot, that's a dedicated 10-foot wide trail.
okay, I think you answered my question because it's a hiking trail, not a ski trail.
You can go on it with skis if you want.
Well, I mean, if it's on the driveway,
It-
people are gonna
this-
plow their driveway, so they're
This
not gonna be
trail
able to use
system
it.
here is the trail system that runs throughout the valley.
Yep.
That was originally established between the Waterville Company and the ski area owner for them to run their mountain biking, hiking, cross-country skiing operation.
And it exists and is used extensively.
No, I know. I use it.
And the ski area very nicely, basically makes it available for public use.
And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's why we buy our patents.
Exactly.
I think I need to go up there to show Bill where my other question was. There were two corners that didn't seem to have monuments. This is the right sheet, but
Right.
here and, this corner up here.
Typically, and maybe the law has changed, after final approval, it used to say you had so many days to set the corners. We don't set the corners until, I've never set the corners until after final approval, because they move around a little bit sometimes. And I have requested that Horizon come down here as soon as possible after final approval to set all of these.
Right,
corners.
and there's a sheet that shows the existing monuments and the ones to be set, and there aren't any shown at those corners to be set. Or existing,
They're gonna set them all as soon as I.
but they need to be strong. If you look at the other sheet that has those,
Sorry.
you'll see rebar to be set.
So C2, Bill.
You see them here, but there's nothing there. Where's the-
That's because that's an existing,
And
is
there's
it?
nothing here. So there's no existing monument and there's no proposed monument. There's the corner.
It's gonna get solved one way or another.
That was one of. Just missing.
Let's just write it on the back of this.
Okay.
Which one?
It wasn't, is it clear to everybody else that the lot owners, have responsibility, like this section here?
I don't know.
It wasn't clear to me reading the covenant. But, it isn't clear to me if I was a potential buyer of one of these, you know, that somebody isn't maintaining that. because of the way the driveway is drawn in.
Right.
These are just the questions that I sent you on Tuesday.
Are you asking for something to be put on the plan to clarify that, Tara? or should we-
Yeah, I think so.
The only town road in there is the Golden Heights extension up to,
Here, there's a hammerhead turnaround here. and-
Right.
This supposedly was built to town standards, and the utilities to the end of this belong to the
That's
town, I
correct.
believe.
It is gonna be the responsibility of these two landowners to maintain all of this, right? But it's not clear yet on. the
It
plan.
might be if you read this original easement language, you're not, and to be honest with you, I haven't done that. But I'll double check that. If not, we can change that.
Quick, my next question, I went back on the utility plan. The sheet that has the. utility. These are the questions I sent you.
And,
Try not to ever have surprises.
Huh?
I don't ever have surprises, and hear everything in advance. So this may just be my confusion, but this seems to have a sewer easement going here and a fork main here.
That's correct.
Why is that?
Well, that's a fire hydrant.
That's a fire hydrant, okay. Then is there a underground electric going across 29-1 somehow? That needs to be shown on that.
No, all the electric, power, telephone, all follow existing.
This one's showing in lot 29-1, but I didn't see any easement language. It goes up, it's on the plan, it's going across 29-1 to 29-2, but your,
It runs to here,
but your
and we're
easement,
taking it from there.
okay,
The pedestal's here.
all right. So it doesn't need to be any easement language.
It's existing, and if you read the easement language that New Hampshire Electric Co-op has
All right,
in
yeah,
Waterville
right, you're
Valley,
covenant.
it'll keep you awake at night.
They can go wherever they want.
It'll put you to
do
sleep.
whatever they-
It'll put you to sleep at night.
No, it'll keep you
No, it'll
awake.
keep you awake.
It's shocking. We can go anywhere we want and do anything we want to do anywhere in Waterville Valley.
That's correct.
Is that right, Mike?
That's what the easement says. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, it was very broad, to say the least.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that something we should address at some point?
well, I don't know how you.
I don't know how you change it. It's the whole town.
I mean, what
What are
do
you
we
gonna
have
do?
that you would want to offer up? to-
Yeah. What do you,
That's true.
It's what we have, we'd like to have them change.
Yeah,
yeah. There isn't gonna be anything we demand, that's for sure. Or we won't have an electricity.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make sure that I've got the changes that we want, because I'll have Verizon make those and I'll get those back here hopefully by Monday.
That's just what I wanted to go through with you right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at sheet C2, Bill. And I have notes for addressing monuments at lot 36.2 and lot 29.3. There's a monument question on each one of those lots.
Right. I'm gonna make sure that every corner either says it's an existing or to be set.
Okay.
Yeah, those were the only two,
Big pardon?
those were the only two missing.
Description of the easement at the step on lot 29.3 for the trail. I guess that's part of the trail easement.
The width issue?
Well, just the description of that.
It
easement
should
at the
say drive and utility easement. Is that what you mean?
Okay. It has both trail easement and driving utilities.
Right.
And a narrow, signifying the width of the 20-foot easement on lot 36.3,
Right.
just to show the 20 feet.
Yep.
20 feet. On the existing private access, some sort of clarification as to owner maintenance.
I will check the original easement language, when the 40-foot easement, and Bill, it was a 40-foot easement, not a 45-foot easement, I was incorrect. If it's in that original, document, I will make a copy of that for you, and if not, we will add it to the, language that we have in the, amendment.
Okay, so you're gonna make sure that clarification of owner maintenance in covenant somehow.
Yes.
Or in covenant.
When you do the drainage calculations, does the engineer take into consideration when there's a great deal of water to be dispersed? That is, and my concern would be if I owned 29.3, would a heavy rainfall start to fill up the wetland area at the base of my lot?
No, this drainage area is pretty steep as it runs
Yes.
through here.
Yes.
And, when it gets, this wetlands is huge, and the water makes its way into Snow's Brook. So there's no way it's gonna back up like that.
And it's my understanding that the driveway, there are driveway permits approved by the town for all these lots.
Yes.
And the only other thing was the notation of which lots the driveway easements are gonna serve.
Okay, which one's that now?
We're gonna make a notation as to which lots are served by these driveway and utility easements.
I have a quick question. So when someone comes in, let's say I purchased a lot and I have to come in for site plan approval, I would have to, as the owner, have drainage calculations for the impervious related to,
There's no site plan
No,
approval
there's no
required for a
Single family.
Single family home.
They get a building permit.
so they don't have to do any drainage calcs or anything like that? Oh.
They're all done,
It's all done.
So you
as part of the
assume a certain
subdivision.
amount of impervious? Okay.
they assume maximum impervious,
Right.
whatever's allowed maximum
Okay,
by our regulation.
okay,
It's all
all right, thank you.
That's all the notes that I had, Bill. Do we have anything else?
Pardon?
I just want to make sure I got all the stuff.
And we're gonna describe this easement area
Yeah.
enough so that you can lay it out.
Okay.
What day do you wanna do that?
Lay it out.
Mark,
All
are
right.
you all set with the input I gave you on the conditions of approval?
Yes, did you make copies of the conditions sheet for them?
Hmm.
Okay, we need that list of the conditions.
Okay.
And we'll need like 15 copies.
Okay.
Yes, we have gone, Bill and I have gone through those, and they're all listed out with including your comments.
Only slightly black and blue from those
Only,
conditions.
that's right.
No surprise?
Yeah.
There's never surprise. I'm gonna admit that.
Now, just as far as procedure is concerned, we have a list of about 4 or 5 items here.
Mhm.
Does that become part of the conditions procedure?
Yeah, those become conditions precedent.
How come when I said precedent, everybody corrected?
Precedent.
And just to clarify, that means if I make those changes and bring them back on a new plat map, the plat map's ready to be executed, correct?
Right,
It doesn't require a meeting, it's an administrative
correct,
review,
right.
make sure they were done.
Okay, with that, then I'll close the public hearing. And if there's any further deliberation.
Well, I just like a clarification of one issue, which has come up before. This is a previously approved site plan. And we're just amending that a little bit, to allow for some extra lots in here. So since it's an approved site plan, it would seem to, subdivision, right, that it would seem to me that whoever buys these lots is bound by the conditions, not only in the site plan, but couldn't go in and clear cut the property. He would have to conform to whatever the existing regulations are relative
That's
to.
correct.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay, then I'm okay. Because we've run into this right to cut law in the state of New Hampshire, and it really, this is an approved.
Well, still, the right to cut any of the lots in Moose Run is subject to my approval only.
Yeah.
Waterville Company approval only as declarant.
But I don't, what do the town regulations state? When,
No, the only,
well,
only
we
reason
do
you
have
need it-
rules that govern the percentage of area you cut, right?
No.
No?
no,
On a single family home?
no,
We don't have any.
no.
Well, we ought to think about that.
Yeah, it's a tough thing because the state regulates cutting of trees with the notice of intent if it's a commercial cut. The other piece you can have a hand in is if somebody's clearing, and it's obviously a subdivision road, but they haven't been in here to apply for it yet. That's not okay.
Right.
But if
that's-
I wanna cut just trees on my lot, you don't have the authority to regulate that.
Yeah, the town can't tell people they can't cut trees on their lot.
If it's,
Or this,
if it's for a subdivision or commercial purpose, then you
Right.
can, but if it's just cause I don't like them, then you hands it tied.
Hey, Terry,
Yes.
given that you've written all over the copy that I gave you.
So what you're handing
even
out
after I've
is
given
something
two copies
from
to Terry,
Cohasset
can I get one
County?
of the- Sure.
You-
Can I get one back?
all right.
So I've got a clean copy?
probably got the wrong one.
He sure
Hold
does.
I'm supposed to have two.
I got it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm sorry.
I think this is the email I got. from-
It's an example I sent
Fortunately.
Mark for a format.
Okay, then I don't know if I have the other, or this is the wrong one.
Yeah,
The wrong one.
he's handing out an example that I sent Mark from another jurisdiction
Yeah, that's what I thought.
for the format.
I mean, we can't read
This
it?
is the wrong one.
It's public, it's
I understand.
it's a public document, it's a finished one, not a work in progress, so that's fine. And I worked with Bernie Law on that one, so I particularly like the confidence in the format. He was the man.
Okay, we'll have your copies of the, what did we just get copies of?
Nothing.
Nothing, just to wait.
There was a mix up.
All right, any further comments? That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Well, I think you're waiting for Mark to give you the conditions that would be part of that motion.
Okay.
I was gonna try to stretch my memory. Are there restrictions on tree cutting if you're near water, body of water, aren't there?
Shoreline,
Yeah, shoreline.
if it's under the shoreline, right,
Yeah,
state
that's-
shoreline, but that's another thing where it's the state.
yeah.
Shoreline of what bodies of water?
Of lake or river.
Well, it's changed. The status of the Man River changed. The state amended its rules, and I don't believe, I could be wrong on this, that the Man River is any longer considered to be under the Shoreline Protection Act.
Sure is. Yeah,
You think it still is?
I think it is.
Okay.
yeah, unless there's been a very recent change.
No, it wasn't very recent. It was about a year or so ago. They amended the regulations to.
Does it,
That does go in private property.
Yes.
There are some,
does the shoreline rule apply to brooks and streams?
That's,
Smaller.
it's unclear. I mean, apparently, it originally was interpreted to apply to anything. But, I think subsequently, they literally started naming what it does apply to and what it doesn't apply to.
Uh-huh.
And it does not apply to stream, local streams. Yeah.
Right,
tiny little rivulet, probably not.
but from what we've seen, yes, erosion could occur just as easily
Do you,
and maybe worse.
go ahead.
I know.
This should really be 5 lots, I'm using a common drive. Because it has to be accessed,
That's don't hold your breath, that's.
not just frontage.
Okay, that's fine.
So we'll-
That's
we
fine.
won't put those in.
Yes, so that's why this says draft.
Yeah.
Just we'll make
And you
changes
wanna,
and we'll.
you wanna
update.
have them add reimbursement.
So,
Moving on to the next
Bill,
step.
this land is still zoned village
Thanks
commercial,
for bringing
right?
that up. Yeah, absolutely.
That's another question, Bill, that's gonna come up, I think. Because these lands that are village commercial are essentially residential.
Well, it could be, but it doesn't, there's nothing to prohibit you from going ahead with the original plan. If you had somebody who wanted to build a condominium,
You can do anything that's.
you can do anything you want.
It's an
right?
allowed
So
use
I
in a
don't-
village
you know,
commercial
until
zone.
it's built out.
Yeah, so we're back to the Dunkin' Donuts discussion. And still, you could buy a lot and erect a commercial enterprise on it.
Sure.
Okay, you're all in possession now of subdivision conditions to be included on the final plat map prior to recording. Are these notes, Bill, that could be put onto the Mylar itself?
That's not my attorney's choice, my engineer's choice, or my choice.
Yeah, what I'd recommend you do is record the notice of action that has a condition. Record it as a separate document.
So you go to the registry, you record the plat plan, and you record,
Record the notice of action, and that way it's part of the trail that will show up in the so someone knows what conditions subsequent or.
how could you tell by looking at the plat plan that there was another document that was involved? Say you were gonna do some sort of a record search. If you look at the plat plan, it doesn't refer to the notice of action.
Should show up in your title search. Bill. It's gonna show up on the title search. That would be the normal way to do it.
Okay.
And Mark and I just talked about a couple of things you'd want us to recommend additional on here. For number 2, it really should be all 5 of the lots that are using the common drive. So you want to add 36.1 and 36.3 to that. Because the state law defines access as frontage, so the lot has to have both to be exempt from, to be in compliance with 67441. You'll of course want to add as a condition precedent the plan revisions that you talked about already.
You're gonna make that 8.
Under the condition precedent number 2,
And then, just the only other one is that he pay all fees, including reimbursing for my costs. You'll want that as a condition precedent. And I can get you that figure when I get home. Take care of that.
Okay, so I'm gonna add number 8 as the conditions listed on record plan set, planning board meeting 19/07/11.
Bill, because all that would really need to be on the plan or recorded at all of the numbers 3 through 7, that couldn't go on as a note on the plan. Conditions precedent wouldn't have to be recorded. You're
No, I
just-
wouldn't think so,
You're
because
just not filing it. You're not signing it until it was met. So
Right.
couldn't they just put 3 through 7 on the plan somewhere?
you tell me what you want.
Well, you
It
said
might
that-
end up being a second page plat with these notes on that page.
That's probably the best approach, so it's on, okay,
They could probably shift things around the title page and get them on there.
right? Yeah, okay. There's plenty of white space on the title, please. That avoids a separate document and the issue of can somebody find it.
The whole working set doesn't get recorded. The only thing they were proposing to record is the plat map itself.
That's the way we've done it before, is that not correct?
That's not typical.
You usually record everything?
You are, because that's part of the approval.
Okay, we just have never done
You're
that.
holding them to that as part of what you're signing and approving.
Okay,
So you want all of this on my lot, 2 my lot. So if you've got a big subdivision and you have 45 pages of working drawings, that whole 45 pages of working drawings are recorded as part of the plat map?
It depends.
Depends on what. I'm just curious. I'm all done. This is my last subdivision of my career, so it doesn't matter. I'm
If
curious.
it's anything that is gonna be part of the approval, that's not enforceable unless it's signed.
What about representations that are made that are part of the minutes of the meeting? Aren't those enforceable?
They should be in a findings document. I mean, that typically, I would write a document that has the findings, lists all the submittals. But Water Valley doesn't do that, so the only way that, so, like, here's an example, the one that he was handing out. So here's one in another jurisdiction, and we list all the submissions and all the state permits, and here's all the sheets in that one. So we didn't record all of these, we recorded this, and that brought them in the record. But they were recorded by
Construction
reference.
drawings are frequently changed or amended
Right.
during the
And
construction
that's why,
process.
that's why I use this approach with something that has 40 sheets.
Right.
I've put them in here with the sheet number and the date.
All right. Do you want a stamp and a signature on each and every page?
Or it's just a few, I would do that.
Okay.
I would do that, or it's just a few.
So you want them stamped and
The alternative is the town could write findings like this that reference all it.
why don't we do that?
I mean, either,
That's much easier.
I mean,
Either way-
record the,
either way, it gets them recorded, that's the point.
yeah, we'll do the document like Coas County did
Yep,
in her example. And we'll list, other than the plat map, we'll list all of the other sheets in the
so
plan.
you still only want the plat map?
I think it should be the plat map with the conditions subsequent.
Yeah.
On it, if we can do that, that's the idea.
There aren't that many notes, Bill, probably could do that on the plan. All right. Tara, can you help me with number 9 here? Applicant to pay fees. Just that one says that.
Is that 8 or 9?
Nine.
So what's
Eight.
number 8?
8 is conditions listed on the record set of plans for the planning board meeting.
Okay,
All right, I move that the 6-lot subdivision on Golden Heights Road and Valley Road as presented today by Waterville Company be approved with the conditions precedent
As amended.
on the record set 190711 with the amendments that number 2, lot 36.1 and lot 36.3 be added to those that will be served by the private driveway. Number 8 be added that includes the conditions listed on the record set of plans, planning board record set, planning board meeting 190711. And the addition of number 9, which states that the applicant is to pay all fees. And that the conditions subsequent, number 3 through 7 on that document, be noted on the plat plan. This to be recorded.
Question. So when you're saying 36.1 and 36.3, we have access from that, that would be sub number 3 of 2?
That's number 2.
number 2.
But,
It's
yeah,
just that
that's
the
number
listed
3.
number, the listed number 2 is
Right.
incomplete. That's all.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And we'll do a roll call vote on this. Mike? Approved. Bill?
Approved.
Approved?
Yeah.
Approved. Very good. Okay, the application is approved unanimously.
Your last one, Bill.
Nick?
I hope so.
I just want to make
No
sure you
personal
have this
offense, man.
record set because it's referred to in. Right.
Thank you, Terry. Nice working with you. I think you're doing a great job. I hope you continue to use
You
Terry.
said that for the record, right?
Yeah, that's after it's all done.
That's number 10, right?
Beg pardon?
Number 10?
Yeah.
On this list, whether
No,
we
that's just
continue
a-
to
that's
use
just a
Terry.
comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Which one? It's just. It's just right.
Can,
Go through.
can I just have a point of order, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did you set a time limit in that motion for meeting the conditions precedent?
I didn't.
Should we, Tara, have like a time that they'll be done within, by the next meeting or within 30 days or, I mean, that way they don't continue on?
Yeah, there's certainly different. Yes, but there's such a wide range of times that towns put on them. Some is up to 2 years.
Well, I'm just saying, he's gonna do, because he wants to get
Gonna do it,
going,
yeah.
he's gonna do these, but I just think for the record and to be kind of consistent in the way we make the motions, if we just, even if it's 30 days, it's, at
It's-
least lets them revisit it.
It's something I wanna put in the changes to the regulations.
Okay.
So that it will be built into the process, but you really don't have that yet. You know what the basics would be.
Okay, whatever the board wants to do, but I don't think we have to worry in this case, but there may be projects where you wanna do that.
Thing is, it doesn't hurt anybody except them if it drags on. And
I understand.
And they've not vested if they haven't done it within the 2 years under the 5-year exemption.
Yep.
Would it be fair to say that the record really show the intent to do it, and that if he doesn't do it, we could use that as an argument to rescind the approval.
Well, that's kind of where I was going, Bill, but like she said, he can't, if their conditions precedent, he can't do anything. He can't record the plans, he can't, until he's met all of those conditions.
Right, it really doesn't hurt you
Yeah.
to have it right now.
No, it's, well, right, yeah, we don't, I mean, why do we
Doesn't hurt
care
the
that if he chooses not to file any of this stuff?
Right.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
And we can open.
next item under old business is zoning amendments with Tara Bamford, but we do have another application before us today. So I'd like to move that ahead so that we're not holding everybody up. That'll give you, Tara, you can time.
You want to charge for that?
She sure does.
Now I'm
Yes.
hourly, I've got to think about it.
No, you're fine.
Would it be bad to have,
Charges,
would it be bad to have you here anyway?
yes, I agree.
Okay, we have a minor site plan application
Right
in
there
the
on the
Waterville
table.
Valley Resort Trail System. We have received the application and reviewed the application and found it to be complete. It has been available for review by everybody on the board. If anybody has any questions or any comments with regard to the application. Then I would move that the board accept the application as complete.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the application is complete. There was a little bit of a mix-up in the notification for the public hearing.
Mhm.
Didn't go out in time. So we can't call the public hearing today. Now, the notice did go out late and had addressed or had notified the public of a hearing on the 19th, is that correct?
Well, it went out in time for the public hearing to be held on the 19th for the special meeting. And that's the way it was noticed to the abutters and to the public. So there is a notice that has been sent properly for a meeting on the 19th at 8 a.m.
In the Waterville Valley Resort Association, it says it's not really a necessity to have it on the 19th, and it could wait till August, is that correct?
That is the email I received, but we had already sent the notices out and could not retract them.
Is it possible to extend the public hearing until the August meeting with another notice?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, but you have to convene the meeting and then you can adjourn it you can continue it to another date.
Yeah,
But it must be convened because.
It must be
it's
convened
noticed.
because it's been
yeah, I would
noticed.
do that,
Does that
Why don't we
affect
just
you?
do it if we're
Well, it was a timing issue from the resorts.
It's gonna be next spring. So I'm saying timing wise, it's just, it doesn't pertain to us. That's not very much. So there's no rush.
So you can't do this until next spring, anyway.
So, you guys, decide how you want to do it for the 19th.
Well, I guess there's
And-
no option, we have to convene.
You have to convene that meeting. And really, there should be 4 of you there to convene the meeting. That makes it official. And then you just simply continue it. If there's anybody here on the 19th, because the abutters have been noticed, take their comments and you'll have a recorded meeting. It'll have minutes and everything else. And then you make a decision or continue it to August.
Okay, do we have 4 members that can make it on the 19th?
Am I allowed to be a seated member?
Sure.
Then that's fine. I'll be there.
I cannot make it on the 19th.
I cannot.
Rich can be here. I mean, Rich is here that week.
Then that's 4.
Okay, So for the matter of public hearing, we will postpone the opening of the public hearing until the 19th.
There's
But-
no provision, Mark, in anywhere in, if you made a mistake and put the wrong date down, to rescind that?
No, what we did, Bill, was we didn't get it, we didn't
Well, I
get it to the
understand that, but
abutters
I'm
in
just
time.
asking a hypothetical question.
Yeah,
Suppose
there's-
you published the wrong date. There's no way to correct that error?
Not in statute, you'd have to renotice it for another,
Well, couldn't we
hearing.
just renotice it and send
That's
out
what we did.
messages to everybody again?
no, that's what we did. We sent a different date out, but you still have to have 10 clear days before you can hold that meeting.
Right, but I'm not sure that I'm communicating clearly here. But if we wanted to not hold the special meeting on
Yes,
the 19th,
yes.
but let the abutters know that the real hearing is gonna occur on that, there's no provision that allows us to just renotice everybody?
I think you could send out a notice canceling it.
Would we send that out certified or again, or would we just send it
Certified again,
out
yeah.
certified again? Oh, we can do that, Bill. I
Oh, okay,
just-
well,
It just
all right,
was,
fine.
trying to prevent confusion on the part of the abutter when it is and, because then could that notice the cancellation be a change of date? That's
Yeah.
what Bill is asking.
Right. I
And just
think-
tell
I
them
think
that
that's
it's
the
8
other
August
option
instead.
Versus having on that date and then continuing it. And-
Okay.
And how is that really fair to the abutter?
Right, and
versus-
and
Why don't we
somebody
just have a
shows
meeting?
up and they comment, and then what are they gonna do? It's, the people voting never hear the comments. I mean, later on, we're gonna have all
Well,
kinds of problems with that, I
If
think.
we can, we'll send out new certifieds and just change it to the August meeting.
And the other option was just
I
having
would-
it
I would opt for that,
on the
but
19th
that's-
as noted.
Well,
I'm confused why we wouldn't have it. We're on notice that we're gonna be really busy, in this upcoming year. This isn't a rocket science, application. I say if 4 of us, technically have to show up anyway. We can get input from anybody who can't be here prior to the meeting, and let's just bang it out.
Get it done.
That's what I would.
Maybe there's other work that we will do on the zoning. I could be here that day too.
Well, it's up to me.
Just get-
Well, you're not gonna have
You're
a
not gonna have
big
a lot of people.
portion of the board. A lot of people can't be here.
Okay.
But I like
Yeah.
Rob's suggestion that this is a pretty simple application, and unless you got a surprising amount of comments from butters, you've already hashed off, you've already hashed over in the conceptual consultation a lot of the issues, right?
This is simple. Just get it done.
Well, you could do
One
it
less
for
thing.
people.
Just get it done.
So is the board in agreement that we will?
And Nancy gets
It
that.
remains that we will have a meeting, a special meeting on the 19th.
For the purpose of actually approving.
Saves
You
you.
might as well let the
mailing
people
costs, too.
who show up to that meeting,
No,
hear comments,
That's what
if
we
any,
intend to do.
and they're gonna have to vote.
Tara, there's no reason why they couldn't talk to Tim about the application. They have a completed application in front of them. Can they ask him questions like this group
Now,
right now?
Yeah. I would say,
Yeah. I mean, if you guys have
The 19th,
concerns.
8:00.
8 o'clock. I won't be here, but Nancy will come.
okay,
But yes, there would be no reason. You have to have a public hearing during the 65 days.
Right.
It doesn't have to take up all of the
Right.
meetings. No reason, but the chair should.
We're done.
Go for it.
all right.
I like it.
It's on my iPad, so that means it's a discussion.
All right, meeting on the 19th.
And thank you to those who said we could make it. I appreciate it. Tim, did you want to make a presentation? I mean, we've gone over this with Dave.
No, I'm just here to answer any questions. Dave wasn't available. He's at a IMBA National Forest, mountain biking, seminar that they're working on, so he wasn't available today, so I'm here to answer any questions. if you have.
They did a good job with the photos and the sketches and so forth. That was helpful. Okay, so, I'll open it for discussion. Everybody had a chance to get familiar with it?
I have not,
Okay.
so it's possible that if I could just see the application.
I have a question. So I saw the pictures, it just looked like dirt. What happens when it rains?
So that's not finished, what the pictures are, it's not finished. So after you get that dirt sculpture, that base dirt, then you see mulch, all of it. And then the back slope, there's like a berm back slope, so it drains out the front side of the berm. And if that's on a downhill, it's easy, but if it's on an uphill, sometimes you have to put a little bit of culvert underneath it so it drains out. Sometimes you put a rock base in the center of the berm so it drains down below. You notice that by that, so it's not, we don't build these things, when we build them on the mountain, you build a water bar on the inside, and then you shed the water out the backside of the berm. When you build it on flat ground, it just dissipates with the sea cover and the grass on the sides.
And you said you're planning on doing it in the spring?
Yeah. Yeah, we're too busy now.
So is these connected to the pump track, the pump track, right? And then,
But it's not technically a pump track.
I mean-
Pump track is very specific. We're enhancing the terrain to make it more desirable, to try to get bikers to go off-road before they head over to Snows Mountain. Before
Okay.
their first experience going down a hill is gonna be going down Snows Mountain. I'd rather have them cut through. And a lot of it is old trail that was there at one time, but just simply hasn't been maintained.
right, so all of these new,
Making it more.
that's in red, all the new trails are gonna improve.
Yeah, actually, most of those trails are there.
Right,
They're
no, I
just gonna
understand,
improve it.
but and then you're gonna add some berms and so not only right around the skate park, but out, further out.
Yeah, it's marked on the map. with
Yeah.
a Little red asterisk, yeah.
No, I think it's good, you know. I'm just curious, I wanted to understand what you're doing. So,
Absolutely.
actually, I think it's better than you're doing more than just around, right around the skate park, you're expanding it more.
Yeah, trying to give a better customer experience. And desirable experience, as we all know, the bikes have a tendency to go and wander.
They make their own.
They make their own if it's not there.
Well, it also improves the connectivity, you know, to the other trails.
Correct.
I'm just interested in number 2, Tim, that's the Nelson's Path. And what it says in here is remove hazard and down trees, mow grass, cut back vegetation, establish 18-inch trail tread, and remove or cover rocks and stumps, imported materials needed. It doesn't say build any berms, but I'm assuming that no berms in there. Just straight trail.
No, that's graded trail.
Yeah, okay.
It really needs it. And
It
we were
really
on
needs to be
yesterday.
cut back.
Yeah, we were on it yesterday. It's,
It would be a very highly desirable path if people knew it was there. When we get to it.
Mhm.
I think it's a
it's
great
usually-
cut through. It makes it so that corner at the golf course doesn't become such a mass congestion.
So all the trails you're proposing to whatever upgrade, there's easements or you own the property?
We have the property. Well,
You own the
technically
property?
Not me, it's technically our ownership has another company that owns the property. That's part of that 18
Okay.
parcel.
So either
Well, we
you
have
own
the-
it or you have easement.
And before this, we had a letter from WCI.
Right, doesn't matter
Authorizing the use of it.
what it is now, you own it.
Is that closed, that property closed?
Yeah, it closed 2 weeks ago, Friday, 2 weeks ago tomorrow.
So you're taking the rocks out of it?
Yeah, trying to improve it. Pop some of the rocks out, cover some of them up, depending on how big they are.
I kind of like the rocks, but okay.
We bought a mini excavator that can handle some of that stuff and be able to just, it can go between the doorway.
Oh,
This
cool.
thing can fold up and go between the doorway and extend back out, and we're hoping that that can assist in trail maintenance. Forest Service, one of the reasons Dave's at Forest Service today is Forest Service is having a lot of heartache about putting a machine into trail systems, but we can't maintain our trail systems by hand, because we can't get enough hands to maintain trail systems that we have. And as we all know, if you hike any of the Forest Service trails, they're a wreck.
Right.
They really should be using these mini machines that we have now that are
Nice.
built to be able to do this type of thing. We're having hard trying to get them to allow us to use that to maintain some of the trails in the national forest. And we're hoping to use this land to build and reconstruct some of these flat trails, primarily as training. So that when we get to the permission to rebuild some of these single tracks around town on the national forest, we have some, more background, more equipment.
That certainly makes sense. I was just commenting because the rocks on the trail make it a little more interesting when you're riding your bike through it.
Yeah, for people who can ride a bike, they're
Yeah, no,
awesome.
I get it. So you're trying to make it where it's closer to the town center to make it more beginner, low intermediate.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
What's
I
that?
want a strolling trail. I mean, it's walking.
We all know, I mean, the things that our clientele that comes, our guests that comes into this valley, they're not avid mountain bikers for the majority.
Right.
We need to offer a product that can get them into a trail.
Yep.
Get that fear over being on dirt before they go over the snows or before they go down to the connector trail or anything like that. It's in the trail, it's making it better.
Right.
On the, pump, what's it called, pump track, or pump tread?
Yeah, I don't like to use pump track because it's not really a pump track. A pump track is a very designed feature where you actually have a track that's in an oval and you can keep going around and around and around. And what we're doing in that one section is we're adding more features, more dense features, and people are going to call it a pump track because that's what they see it as. Technically, it's not a pump track. It's more, as we like to use the term, trail enhancements. The mountain biking community is in upheaval right now because there's a totally different way of building trails than there were back in the 1990s. Trails used to be built by hand and they called it rake and ride, and they just rake it and then ride it. Nowadays they're putting machines in, and now they're separating different types of trails, being a free ride trail, gravity free ride trail, and technical trail. And a technical trail is what we have here in the valley. It's similar to like Kingdom, if you ever heard of Kingdom. That's the way they're building their trail systems, large trail system in New England. It's totally changed northern Vermont. The economy in northern Vermont is blowing up. It's got 130,000 biker visits that are coming into that. They can't handle the influx. And they do all tech trails. And then there's free ride gravity trails, which is about Highland Bike Park down by Tilton. They do all free ride gravity trails. Those are much more engineered, big machines build it. It's elevated tracks, it's jumps and foams and perms. In a technical trail, you can have a trail enhancement that you do with a machine that gives it a little bit of a bank, gives it a little bit of a roll, but it's not a free ride trail. We're not talking about big jumps. We're not talking about things that guys are taking 20 feet of air on. We're talking about whoop-de-doos that kids can go, yeah, as they go over.
Or a skier.
Or a skier, yeah, exactly.
And then in between that's Greenwood, the acres, that,
That's
they're all
yeah,
machine.
yeah, Bob's an interesting character, isn't he? Have you
Yeah.
met him?
Yeah, I've been there a number of times, and I was also at King of Trails.
He's
a number of
amazing.
times.
He's really cool, but he's doing a system out there which is totally free
Right,
with his family trust money. He's making a system there, and he's combining free ride elements into a technical cross country almost environment. He freely admits he has no idea what he's doing.
yeah, but he's hired good people that
He's hired
know
great people.
what they know what to do. So there's like 30 miles of trail, and then he has more than that cross country, but in there, they're more typical to our cross country trails. But then the mountain bike trails are, he's taken out all the elements, but they're really smooth riding and they're like 2 feet, 18 inches to 2 feet wide, and he's done a really good job with the draining and everything else.
Yeah, he's changed a bunch of stuff. He's doing it all at no cost. He's trying to build the economy of that area. His main goal is try to get mountain bikers to come into that,
Which you started to
into
do.
that town. He
Yeah.
serves on the town planning board. He sees that town is really struggling. Actually, they're very similar. Their school's cut in half. They've had some issues, but he's trying to invest his money to bring more people into the town to increase commerce. That's what his main driver is.
So we saw a bunch of people going to Never Fest is like 2,000 mountain bikers in a tent city with expensive bicycles. And so a bunch of people, I saw at least a couple hundred, went to the Acres and Greenwoods on the way up because they heard about it. You know, to check it out.
Right, and you can get in from that side now. Get in the ski from that side and that's.
So the main problem that they're all having are infrastructure problems. When you start getting 130,000 mountain bikers to show up at your front door, where do they park? Where do they go to the bathroom? Where do they get food? Where do they camp? Those are Kingdom Trails it's a major issue in that area right now. Here we have facilities. Our mountain biking has been dilapidated, to say the least, and it's at bringing of age. Some of the things that we can do is simply take some of our old trail systems and start doing maintenance on them.
Right.
And that's what we've been trying to do with National Forest. Had a proposal in there for 3 years, and they're really scared of us building Highland Bike Park.
They're scared of people.
They're scared of use.
Yeah,
They're scared of
use. That's right.
Land
They don't want it.
uses.
They've said it.
Yeah.
They've said they do not want the use.
But, and
And the hard part is we shut down a couple of our bike trails because they were going straight down Fallen, and these trails that we proposed are really reroutes of those trails that once existed. The proposal's been in for 3 years.
Yeah.
We still haven't been accepted.
then you have a lot of trails that are nice, but they're shut down sometimes.
Yeah, water issues.
Yeah.
A lot of our trails are, they're just our Nordic trails. What we should be doing is mountain biking reroutes around the wet areas. But once again, it comes back to the Forest Service. That's why Dave's not here right now, is because he's working with the Forest Service. They brought in Inba, they brought in Mark from Highland, they brought in Bob, they brought in everybody from this area that has interest in doing mountain. All the guys from Sparks Brooks, the Inba chapter, all those guys are all meeting the past 3 days. And it's not, it is purely administrative. It's not with the guys that are boots on the ground. So the National Forest guys and the boots on the ground don't hold against those guys, because it's not those guys. It's administrative. They are very scared of the workload that they see, that they think they need to do in order to approve these types of trails.
Yep.
We're working through it. We've been working for 3 years on it. We're continuing to knock down the doors, but that's what we're doing. And so while we're waiting, what we can do is improve some of our trail systems that we have within our own community and try to make them more advantageous for mountain biking and hiking and just pedestrian.
So are you considering Neba did some trails behind High Country?
Bike streams.
Yeah, and they're very simple, they're level, and they're good practice. I went back there the other day and they're kind of really
They're almost
overgrown.
gone. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
almost
there's
gone.
sections that
I did a
are,
lot of work to those last year. What we really need to do is bring the machine in there.
Yeah.
Start to repack those. But that,
because it's a
that
perfect,
was our idea in phase 2. If we were
Okay.
able to get up on the snows, we were gonna go down in there. It's a very minor area. But we can talk about this later. We don't need to talk about this.
no, I
Unless you're
understand,
all interested, I'm happy to discuss.
but it's a very, it's a good for beginners. It's a good practice area for beginners.
It is.
Because of the tight turns and things like that.
Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing is this is a very good warm weather business opportunity for the resort.
There's no money.
No?
There's no money. There's a lot of money in the community for it, but we don't charge trail passes in the summer.
Right, there's no, what
People don't
Bill's
pay trail
Bill's comment
passes.
isn't for you, it is potentially bringing people and money into the valley,
Correct.
not necessarily the resort.
Correct. It's an improvement. It's an improvement that we're trying to make.
But they rent bikes from you guys.
Yeah, and,
I mean-
and it could improve that product. You know,
Yeah.
But I'm honestly, I'm renting out a lot of bikes. And when
Okay.
I tell a mountain biking company that I did 217 bikes last Saturday, they're, jaw drops. But I'm getting freedom pass money for it. It's not that we're getting.
Right.
And a big push right now is trying to introduce people to mountain biking. We have that. We have the best introduction to mountain biking there is. And you can ride up a chairlift and ride down a 2-track
Right.
road and
Yes.
get very confident in your abilities to ride a bike. We are the all-star resort for that.
Okay.
That's what we need to focus
Does
on.
anybody know it?
No.
That's-
Honestly,
That's the question. Does anybody know? And that's why I asked this
Right.
question about
A big
business
portion.
opportunity.
yeah, a big portion of that for us is that no one knows that this exists, the product exists, because we make our money off of Freedom Pass. And that Freedom Pass gets all these people out into the town. But the money's not like, we're getting per caps of $13. These other resorts are getting per caps of 70, 75. It's not, Highland Bike Park is doing 30,000 biker visits in the summer. They're doing $70 per biker visit. Killington's doing 35,000. They're getting $75 per biker visit. Kingdom is doing 130, but they're only seeing about $15 in
Because
visits.
I think Highland, when you go there, it's downhill, so you rent the bike, the specific bike, you rent the armor, and you get a lesson. I mean, if you haven't done it before, and then the package is $100, all inclusive, which is not, so it's a little bit different where Kingdom Trails is you're buying a pass, and then you don't need, usually have your own bike and everything else.
And these other resorts, do they ride a lift to the top of the?
Kingdom, you do not.
No.
Kingdom, you can ride over at Burke. They have a lift service, but it's Kingdom's a association, it's a nonprofit association that does all of this, and they're trying to rebuild that community because that area is very, it's very poor. They had a hard time. So this was an economic stimulation project that worked. There's over 90 landowners that make up the Kingdom Trail.
It's like 100 miles of trail.
It's incredible.
Getting back to the application.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question.
Interesting.
Where there's going to be, I understand when you're going down through the trails, you're widening over here and there, taking up a rock here and there, putting in a berm in and so forth. When you get to an area that is where, what I call the pup track, apparently it's not really, it's a concentrated area of a lot of berms and so forth, probably higher, maybe a little bit more wider area. When you shape it, what do you do then? Do you hydro seed it or something? I mean, you
Just seed and hay. Just
seed,
seed and
okay,
hay,
so you're
water.
seeding the hay, the mounds, and then the tracks just kind of where they're gonna be.
Correct. And then occasionally you'll have to go in there once a year or so with the mini excavator. And, you know, if one firm starts to do this,
Right.
you have to put some more material into it, harden it, reseed. You know,
But it's
it takes
basically a green thing. I mean,
Correct.
it's
It's not going
hills
to be.
of grass and weeds and stuff like that, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be patchy, just like all of our grasses around here.
That's New England.
That's New England, exactly.
All right, any further questions that pertain to the application? All right, I guess, what we'll do then is table this to the public hearing that's scheduled for the 19th. So we can get the public hearing and perhaps, have further discussion and bring it up for a vote at that.
These
time.
are available up at town office.
They are.
Are most of these trails that you marked down here, Tim, are they walkable? Are some of them just so grown over you couldn't tell there was a trail there, or most of them?
Yeah, some you can tell there's a trail there, some have a big tree. I know one has a huge tree that's blocking it right now.
Yeah.
Part of it used to be the old golf course. Another part is the trail, right by your house. And then the trail right behind Black Bear. You can walk that, but it's just a jack up in the woods.
You proved that last
Yeah,
winter. It was
that's
nice.
great.
It was nice.
Part of it is paved,
No, it's not.
No,
the one behind Black Bear.
You want to be on Black Bear.
No, it's,
just off of the
Yeah.
parking lot.
it was a
Another
really
path
nice one.
that's got broken asphalt.
Mhm.
Will this be, tracked in the winter?
Ian's the one, Ian wants to do travel and stuff.
It
Wants
would,
to
it would,
make it more interesting.
it would be nice. I mean, 'cause it would be nice.
They've started to do that in other places.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Started to put undulations.
People would like that. I like it. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Happy life, happy
People,
people.
people.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim.
Absolutely.
And we'll, go back to old business and the zoning amendments that Karen is suggesting. What, Tara had supplied us with the copy of the zoning ordinance as it is, and made her comments on it. About 50% of them were readable.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so let me start by, I apologize for dropping the ball on your last meeting. That was a perfect storm that isn't likely to ever happen again. And before we start talking about the subdivision regulations, which is, I think, what you're talking about,
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly go.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, you are talking about subdivision regulations or zoning?
Yeah, well, we need to talk about both. So,
Okay.
subdivision regs first. I think I've handed this out before here, but I think a lot of the confusion when you're talking about applications and also when you're talking about the regulations, could be cleared up by reviewing the steps of the subdivision review process. And this is the steps is how they're laid out in RSA 676-4 board's procedure on plats. I think everybody knows that you have these first two steps that are optional. The number one, the informal, and the two, the design review. But I think there's some confusion here sometimes when we get to number 3 and 4. The statute lays out really clearly this thing that's called the submission of the final application, and that's the completeness review of the final application. And then accepting that final application starts the 65-day clock. Then you have the review of that final application that you accepted, and during that period have the public hearing. And you want to make the decision and then the conditions and whatnot. Your regulations, and I think this is why we're stuck in the mud a little bit on the first meeting on bills. Your regulations have an extra step that the state law doesn't provide for. That the state law doesn't really allow that two-step thing where you have what you call your submission plan and then your final plan. My guess is that's a leftover from when preliminary plans weren't optional. And we all got a preliminary plan and said, all right, this can be final with these changes on it. And it was almost like a conditional approval of that preliminary plan. And then they came in with the final that had those changes. But that's not how it can work anymore, now that those preliminary steps are optional. There's only one final plan. You accept that as final, and now you have just 65 days to review that plan, not to tell them what you want to see on a different plan. And I know that that's why we were going in circles a little bit, because you have this extra thing in your regulations that just doesn't belong there. So a lot of the things that I X'd out, and yes, again, my intent wasn't that you be on your own with my handwritten comments, but I had handed it out, to just kind of give a sense of where I was going with things and make sure this was the magnitude of review that you're expecting. And then I had planned to meet with you on it next. So does everybody have the marked up subdivision regulations? Anybody? I have some extra copies of it.
No, I don't have one.
I've been looking for it all morning, I can't find it. I know I got it back.
Because I noticed some of the things and I was really happy that you guys met on your own and started talking about it, even though I got involved.
Thank you.
And I know some of the changes look like no-brainers we all
Yeah.
need, and others you had some questions or I had some questions. I wanted to revisit a few of those before I tackle the first draft. One was just about recodifying it, because I didn't understand your comment back of yes, if not consistent with others. my feeling in your subdivision regulations and site plan regulations is that the way they're numbered makes it so that you have no idea where you are in the document when you're on a given page. You're just, all right, this page has A, B, and C, but what section are her? So more typical would be to have it be section 100, and then each one in it would be 100.1, 100.2, whatever. So you always know when you're looking at a page
What
where
section
you are. You can find your way.
Either that or put the, on the top of the page,
I only have this. like-
what article you're in. I know it's difficult going through it right now, but you have to go back 2 or 3 pages to know what article you're in.
Right, your site plan regulations are like that too.
Yeah.
I find it really difficult.
Yes, that's, yes. I put them in my notes.
So I wanted to make sure it was okay to go ahead and make that change as I'm reworking and reorganizing.
Just as long as it's consistent with the other, like the site plan review or the subdivision.
No, your site plan review's like this.
I don't know why we would codify one and not the other.
I would love to fix the site plan regs too at some point. There's a couple of changes that I'd like to see you make. Again, that wasn't a comprehensive review that we do last year on those. You just wanted that minor site plan and with a couple other changes in there too.
Do you see problems with that, Mark?
No, we tried to do that before, and people didn't like it, and we went back to this, the way it currently is. Because we had 8.1, 8.2, 8.3.
I just seem to remember some real long.
Well,
numbers.
that's where, we probably took it too far.
Yeah, within
But-
those, I do the lettering and numbering. I don't like the total, with 4 decimal points either.
Right, so we have done it that way, and then we went back to the way it currently is because people were too confused in our numbering system.
Okay, as another option, I
Mhm.
just don't know if it's possible. Is it possible to not go with the long numbers and not have the 2 or 3 numbers in sequence like you're talking about, but put on the top of each page what article you're in, what section you're in, and so forth? No.
No, but you don't have to have really long numbers. You can letter and number things within the section.
All right, but
So,
say you're on the 5th sheet of Article 5. Is every one of your paragraphs
Oh,
gonna
I
have
see.
Article 5 on it?
I see what you're saying. So if I look, so in other words,
no,
when I look at page 7, for example, all right, and I just see section D,
Yeah, no,
right now, if, I don't know, I may not know what article of section D you're talking about, that's what you're saying.
right.
I think that'd be interesting, I think that's a great idea. Just because,
I don't know if it's
here,
in your
for example,
comments. I have it
here.
on my work though.
no, so if you look at, if you look at this page,
Yeah.
right there where it says on the top, section D, what we're saying is section D of what article, but you'd have to go back several pages
Right,
to know that that's part of Article 3.
right, which is sometimes important when you're
Reading.
referring to something.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you have no more than 3 or 4 segments in your numbering system, I think it would work,
I'm only gonna put 2.
and that's fine.
It would
If
be, so
it's
if
only
we,
2 segments.
But
we
we're
all
gonna,
look at the page that, and I can't read the page numbers on this.
Oh,
I
I'm
have
sorry.
the marked up thing for me.
If I look-
Page 8,
When I'm looking at this,
The
for
even
example,
ones are
Look
at
at-
the top left.
at the top, what
right,
Terry's saying, and I agree, would say, Article, Article 3, in this case, Article 3 continued.
yeah, no, it's not gonna be like that. So look at page 8. I think it's page 8. And it has in the middle Article 4.
Yeah.
Right, so instead of section A, it would be 5.1.
We're talking about something different.
I mean,
I-
4.4.
I understand that, but what Terry's saying, And I'm saying,
If
is
you're
go
not-
back one page.
If you're not gonna need that, now
You
turn
won't
the
need that.
page and you're gonna
Before-
have,
Oh, I see.
What
you're
she's
4.2.
saying is 4.1, 4.2
But
tells you you're
Right.
in
I
4.
thought that's what led to the very lengthy numbers when we got.
I'm only gonna have one decimal point, and then we'll go to lettering and numbering. But it will always be in sight of that number, so,
You promised me?
yes. My goal is always to make things more user-friendly, not less.
I would like to have it more user-friendly because I find it very complicated to stay and know where I am on the thing. If you can do it without getting these real long numbers,
Yeah, no, I hate those. Plus, those make it really easy to make a mistake if you're excited enough. You don't want that.
and another thing that made it confusing is I think at one time we tried to codify the whole, all the sections, the zoning, the site plan review, the subdivision, and make it all one book, master plan, and each one of those had a number. So
Well, but that was a chapter within that codification. But
That's a whole different.
you don't,
ballgame.
that's a whole different thing than what she's talking about.
Okay, so, the next page of the index, you had a, question, I know, I watched a little bit of the tape. The reason I crossed out the appendixes is those shouldn't be part of the regulations. Hand them out with the regulations, but don't make them part of the regulations that you adopt as a regulation. You wanna be able to change applications anytime without going through the public hearing process like you do for regulations.
So where do you put them?
You can hand them out with you can hand out a packet that has the regulations and the applications, but don't make it be an appendix to the regulations.
Then you shouldn't refer to it anywhere.
No, you shouldn't.
And when you looked at the list that we have of appendixes, do any of these need to be in the regulation?
No, and the reason I circled this application for change of use is I'm stymied by why you're talking about change of use in subdivision regulations. When would a change of use ever need a subdivision application?
I think it was a poor choice of words. I would guess what they implied was what we just went through with Bill Campbell. A revision to an already approved subdivision, you know, along a new set of requirements. I'm assuming that's what it is. But you're right, I don't know what change of use would need to
Yeah.
imply.
Okay, well, that's why I flagged that one. On, I guess it's page 1. 3. The first page of the actual regulation. I had a question about, in your site plan, right, so there's two, you make a reference to an approved master plan in the regulation. The intent of the town and its residents to permit development within an approved master plan. What is that referring to?
Well, I know what it's referring to, but I suspect it's way out of date now. And so there was a master plan for developing this entire valley that was prepared by the Waterville Company 50 years ago. And it's almost irrelevant.
Okay,
And I'm assuming that's what this is referring to.
that's what I was guessing too. I wanted to check before I just looked at. You had a question in a couple of places where I noted that engineers need to be on the public notice list. I've written in engineers, conservation holders, anybody with a stamp on the plan needs to be notified.
Really?
Surveyor, engineer.
Even though the applicant is the name on the application?
Yes. It's because if they've put their stamp on the plan, they have a right to know when it's before the planning board. And anybody with a easement or
Never knew that.
easement on the property, so.
No, it does if they have an issue between the developer and his engineer you know, in their business relationship, the engineer has an interest if his stamps on the plan of knowing that the developer is using that.
And some might choose to come to the meeting.
Come to the
or
meeting,
hearing
right.
To answer any questions. It's,
Yeah, but no one can alter a plan that has a stamp on it other than the engineer.
it's part of the state law.
But they have to be
Yeah.
notified.
mhm.
I think it's takes long. There you go.
Again,
Okay. We're, so,
This time I don't agree. Sometimes I would agree. One of the questions I still had after looking at your comments and questions.
can I go back?
Sure.
My brain sometimes lags. Let's go back to the appendices, or whatever we want to call it. So what we're saying simplistically is that if we're handing these things out, we're gonna hand out our actual regulations, and then we're gonna say, oh, by the way, here's another staple document that, even though it's not part of this, kind of explains this. Is that
No,
what we're
it
saying?
shouldn't explain it. It's the application for it. What's common is
Well, I
for a
understand, but
town to hand out, a packet that has kind of a flow chart, like if you're doing this, here's what you need.
So in other words, if you're
and
doing
the
this,
regulations and the
you
application.
need this.
Right. Yeah,
But it's not really part of this.
right.
Is that
It's
what we
all,
just-
it might all be
Is that what I
one,
just said?
it might be part of all one packet that you hand out to them. It doesn't.
So it's part of one packet, but it's not part of, okay.
and the reason.
As I interpret what you're saying is we could provide a form for doing certain things, but it's not mandatory that you would use that form. That's why it's listed in the appendixes. It's not part of the regulation that you must fill out this specific form.
No, it is, because in the regulations, you're gonna say part of the complete application is the application
Well,
form.
right, unless you did it that way.
But you
right.
guys can change that application form in 2 months if you realize you wish something else was on it. You don't have to go through the public hearing process.
Then it shouldn't be an appendix, it should be just another document.
It should be
Yeah,
another
that's what
That's
she
document.
why
said.
I don't like
Part
to
of-
see them in the appendix,
Right.
because then you can't
Okay.
change them.
Because then you gotta go through that public
Separate
notice
Right.
process.
Another thing I wanted to check on before I take a crack at a first draft was
Let's go here.
what you want, to have an expedited process on to be,
Where are you in the document?
it's really a couple places in the document, but, sorry, I can't read the page numbers on this. It's article, right now I'm looking at Article 6. We need to add voluntary mergers, that's not addressed yet. Minor lot line adjustment, boundary agreement, you would normally not have a public hearing, but you also list that you don't have a public hearing for minor subdivisions, and I wanted to clarify that you're happy with that, and I usually recommend a public hearing with the minor subdivision, but that it can be the same meeting as the review of the application.
That's true of any,
Yeah, I don't like
doesn't
that.
have to be a minor.
I know, I will keep trying to push you away from that, but just because, there's a couple of things that tends to pressure the board to accept it as complete when you really wish there was more information, because you've already noticed the public hearing. That's what I don't like. I don't ever like to see the board feel pressured to speed something along, or even pressured to approve something the first meeting that you've seen it, and not had a chance to think about it.
Do we have an adequate definition of what we consider to be a minor subdivision? I know what minor lot line adjustment is, but what the heck is a minor subdivision?
It's usually 3 lots or less that doesn't involve any new utilities. Yeah, that's what you have in the definition.
So it would be 3 lots or less that doesn't involve any public utilities.
No streets, utilities, or other municipal improvement.
Is a driveway considered a street?
No.
Minor subdivision. All right.
So you wouldn't, right now,
With no potential for re-subdivision.
you exempt those from having a public hearing.
I'm wondering why.
I'd like to see you have a public hearing, but have it be all in one.
It's making it more
Have that be able
complicated,
to be all in one meeting.
having two people. I've never known why we have a minor. Let's treat that as one thing, it's a
Right.
subdivision,
Yeah.
and deal with it
If
the
you
same
wanna
way, same process.
If you want to subdivide your property, generally, this is going to be the case where someone wants to basically take a lot that's an acre and subdivide it up into 2 half-acre lots.
Right.
There should be a public hearing for that.
I would think so.
I would rather have a public
I
hearing.
don't have any problem with this. There's gotta be a public notice anyway, might as well have a public hearing.
Right.
Now, Tara, along that line, while I'm sitting here thinking about this, because I thought about this the other day. Bill Cantley came in with or Whitewell Company came in with a 8-lot subdivision. And we carried along like everything was fine. But technically, as you pointed out, there was 3 subdivisions. There
Yeah.
was 1 3-lot subdivision, 1 3-lot subdivision, 1 2-lot subdivision. Now, couldn't he have come in and said, this is a minor minor subdivision, minor subdivision, minor subdivision, instead of saying this is a 6-lot subdivision or an 8? Should it be prevented that someone could do that, to make a regular subdivision into minor
3.
subdivisions?
I think in
Because
this,
they're
ca-
contiguous,
in
you
this-
know, that's
in
the,
this case too, it needed utilities.
Right.
And I think it was
Well,
to
but
the
he-
town's benefit that he had it all on one as a major subdivision.
But, wait, I think what we're saying is, let's simplify it. So the simple answer is, as my friend Mr. Larson said, let's get rid of this whole minor subdivision anyway. And say that if you're doing any type of subdivision, you're going through this, because you should.
But that requires the person to go to an engineer and.
Right,
go all
exactly.
that.
Right,
It's
it's
quite
a
a bit of
complete
expense.
application.
Yeah,
yeah,
But it's the burden of application that's the issue.
Right.
Because a lot of people come in and say, look, this is no big deal. All I want to do is create another lot here and,
So my
you
son
know,
or daughter can
and
buy a land.
why can't I just get a surveyor and be done with it?
With the limited amount of land that we have left, to develop in this, this town, I mean, I think we want to be stringent. Make, if you want to own that land and you want to, subdivide it or whatever, you go through a full process, that's it.
You don't really, other than exempting them right now from public hearing, you don't have any tiered. There's nothing in here that a minor is free of. So, I mean, you're still just having the road drainage and all, if applicable.
well, no, I think if you look at the applications, there are sections that are bolded. Those are for a minor subdivision. So basically what the board did several years ago, was pick out pieces that you would always have to do. And those were put in bold on the application, and that was the differentiation between. So you didn't have to do a full drainage by an engineering firm if you had a minor subdivision.
So when I rewrite the application requirements, I'll look at those applications.
Yes, I think but you're right, there's nothing
where the
that
minor versus
explained
major
it.
is,
That's right,
yeah.
there was nothing
All
that
right, I'll look in
explained it,
there.
but
Yeah.
in words in the regulations.
But what it usually turns out to be is the others just aren't applicable.
That's right, and that was the whole point.
Right, so I
Yes.
think we might be able to cover it
Right.
that way to say if I.
Yeah, I would. It's not, my concern is not over the public hearing and noticing the public that we intend to do something. It's the burden of doing
That's right.
everything.
Right,
And we've had this before where people have come and say, look, I own a 1 acre lot and I wanna be able to sell off a half acre. But I don't wanna go hire a professional to do all this work. Let me go find a buyer first, but we have a statement that says you can't do that.
You have the ability though to go and ask for a waiver
right.
for any of the requirements.
That's a good segue to the next thing I circled on page 18. I suggested separating the waiver into one section that's about application requirements and another that's about the standard. When you're stuck by the language that's in the RSA's that constrains what you can waive for a standard, you really want that to apply just to the standard. You want the application requirements to be the board's discretion, right? The reasonableness, like you're talking about. So that's what I meant when I wrote separated application requirements and standard.
Yeah, waiver, I think that's a good point, is to clarify that, because I don't think we really have the power to say you can violate our own rules, right?
With the state law says what the bar is to that has to be met.
Oh, right.
But as far as the application requirements, if you wanna not make them do a drainage plan.
Right, yeah.
The bar is
You can
lower
waive
for
the
that.
application.
That's a
requirement.
common sense
Right.
kind of thing.
So
Yeah,
you would
common
have,
sense,
you
but-
would have a waiver article and then have it for
Two
standards
sections,
and then
right,
for
Yeah,
application
that's what I usually do.
steps. Okay.
Because an
So wait a
angry
minute, wait,
abutter,
let
if
me
it's
go
all
back-
one, an angry abutter could make the
Let me
argument
go
that
back to Bill's.
you didn't reach the bar laid out in the
That's
RSA's when
So let me
you
go back to Bill's
waive
comment.
the drainage plan.
The issue that we would have with somebody that has an acre and wants to divide it in half and sell half or sell half to his kids or whatever.
Right,
And the issue here really is not the public meetings and all the rest of it, it's the
right.
document. thing.
What
We would
am I
have the
required
ability to
submit
waive that.
To do that.
We
Yes.
have the
Yeah.
ability to waive all that.
Not all of it, I mean,
No, no.
to be recorded, it has to be done by a surveyor or engineer.
Right, you'd have to get a surveyor to
Anyway.
draw the lines and
But anyway,
But
you
you
have to
could
do that
waive
anyway.
the drainage plan. the
All, we
construct.
have the ability to waive some of those, to waive the drainage things.
Yeah.
So go back to why do we need minor? If we can get around it through that. Isn't that what Scott is saying?
No, I think it's a good point as long as we have a procedure to do that effectively and agree that as a board that, we're gonna apply the test of reasonableness to all these requirements. Or otherwise you get people saying, I'm just filling out paper and what am
Well,
I
that's
doing
what
here?
this would allow.
Yeah, right.
And that's what the nice thing about the optional steps is, like, when you come in and get that kind of feedback. To know to get an idea
Right.
of what you're gonna look for on a final application.
I think if you remove the minor definition and all that, you leave yourself wide open to a lot of applicants saying, how come you let him do that, you don't let me do that?
Yeah, no, I'll think more on that when it's up there.
That's fine.
Page 18, you had a question about my comment that I wrote open space can only be for the subdivision, not the town, and you had a question mark next to that. Cause I crossed out the whole section.
Because we didn't understand we didn't understand what that comment meant. It was, why would there was a question mark?
You can require open space be provided in a big subdivision for the use of that subdivision. You can't require they give it to the town. And you can't require it for town use. That's a taking. Just, you can't, just continue.
Can't by law.
Right.
You can't mandate it. They can voluntarily
Well,
do it, right, Tom?
Yeah, they can give anything they want.
Right.
We don't have parks, playgrounds, or open spaces that are shown on a master plan.
Right across that whole section out.
Right, yeah, I mean, so it's, we could say, you know, I see what they were saying, but that's kind of old language, I think.
Right. So you were, I just wanted to go back to it because you had a question on it. I wanted to beef up the road specifications in here. Not sure if there was a question about that.
Right.
Because you didn't really have road construction standards in here yet.
That's a good idea.
Would you put them in here though, or isn't that like wouldn't that be a town spec?
No, they go in the subdivision regulations. And there's some reference in here to
So you have
standards
drawings and all that?
that's not, sorry?
You have drawings and all that, as part of it, sketches?
We have a,
we all kind of usually use the one from DOT.
yeah, we have a highway regulation document and it includes cross sections from DOT.
Right,
for-
but it really belongs in here. This is what makes it enforceable in a subdivision.
You can't do that by reference.
Oh,
No, that's the way that we've approached it.
yeah, I know.
Because that gave a little bit of flexibility to the selectmen and to the.
The problem
road
is,
agent.
this is a planning board authority under
Yeah,
state law.
Yeah, understood.
What happens with the situation where, okay, so you refer to it, there's two situations. One, you refer to it in the document, and the other, you make it part of the document. If Jim says, well, the new thing in the state is doing this to the road, he wants to change that road section. So we can change the town document road section just by
The highway regs, yeah,
just doing whatever we want to do.
the selectmen vote to do.
Now, it's referred to in this document, doesn't, but it hasn't been passed by the town or anything like that. Can that, if you're looking at the section of the road that's now changing, how do you deal with it in this?
You gotta go
Vote for
through
the
the
town.
process, you gotta modify.
It should be in here.
So you'd have to go before the town to get it changed. to-
No, you adopt
No,
this.
no, we.
Town
adopt
meeting
this.
doesn't.
Oh, that's right.
This is
There's no
a
site-
requirement,
this is
there's
site-
no requirement.
Oh, this is
This
the
is a
regulation.
planning board authority.
Right.
All right,
And,
so you just have to have a public hearing.
and you certainly, it's the highway department that you want to have input into those standards that go in here. And, but it should be part of the regulations.
You're still hard on making it a part as opposed to reference.
Yeah.
Okay. You're tough.
Well, on the same subject,
But wait a minute, whatever the state is,
If it rains, you gotta tell us what it is.
that is one of them.
I'm not saying to follow the states exactly. I mean, I'm saying that, I mean, I can show you some examples, but your own highway department wants to make those changes for
Right.
you that make it fit your town.
and it gets on the subject of, I notice in the definitions, we use this word street. And we've run into trouble with this before. What's the difference between a street and a private, you know, and notice that Bill today talked about a private driveway.
Yes.
And part of it has to do with our regulations.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, forcing them to go to the definition of a private driveway. But yet we use the thing internal street, which is, you know, within an internal subdivision. And I just, we need to get some clarity about what we mean by street.
I agree.
Does it mean public access
We talked about this,
or private
I
only?
think we made changes to the zoning to make it match the subdivision regulations,
Yes,
so that might not have been the right direction to go. I mean, in normal terms, there's a driveway, there's a private road,
Right.
town road, and there's not all these other
Right,
little
I
gray
would,
categories.
exactly, that, there's town roads, there's private roads.
And there's driveways.
And driveways, and private roads, I would assume are, you know, public access is allowed on a private road.
Well, that's a whole.
Well,
That's a
That's
whatever
all,
the
that's out of my
definition
job
should be.
description.
Yeah. But I
But-
think the concern of the town is that somebody like a developer can build a thing that he calls a driveway, which is substandard. It doesn't seem to me that there are definitions here, what the minimum standard of any paved surface is.
No, you
No.
don't, that's exactly why most towns only allow a driveway to serve 2 residences. And if it serves 4, it would normally be a private road and have to meet your road standard.
Right, and then, right, and our problem is where we ran into this, and at the time, I approved the Moose Run subdivision, but I was unaware of this. That they called it a driveway so that they could reduce the lot size. The lot size was measured to the center of the driveway.
Right.
You know, not the center of the road, you know,
So
and
when
they
you
never
buy-
made that particularly all that clear.
Yeah,
When you buy a lot, you're buying half a road,
You're right, and,
for which you have to maintain.
right, well,
That's
that
the other rub.
became clear, that they had to maintain it, but I think that's why he used the driveway, and I don't even know what he's doing here, as I've looked, these are all well over half an acre, so I don't think it's an issue.
No,
But,
but the concern is that eventually that the group that, the landowners of the subdivision will find that the paved road, whatever you call it, is so substandard that they ask the town to take on the maintenance and upkeep of this road. We have this condition over, where is it called, High Country?
That's kind of come up.
that's
Well,
why we
and
use,
so
that's why we don't recommend, that's why
That's-
we planners don't recommend these private something be a private driveway serving 4 lots.
Well, I think that's why you have condition number 2 of what you just approved.
Yeah,
And this is what we have never done here, is get this book, because we have really been in violation of this, of 674-41, because we shouldn't even be allowing lots that don't front either a class 5 or a class 6 road. And in most towns, the standards, and then this is what Tara's saying, the standards, a class 5 road is town maintained, a class 6 road is privately maintained, but there are no different standards for the construction of those 2 roads in
Now-
those towns.
now,
Right.
something I've written for a couple of communities over the years is to take that DOT chart, but make one smaller category
Mhm.
for a country lane,
Okay,
and then it still has specifications about the gravel
The
base
gravel
and
base
so
and-
forth, so
yeah, yeah.
it's constructed to a certain standard.
but what we've done.
But narrower and narrower on the shoulders if it's
Right.
gonna be for just say 4 homes.
Right, but what we've done though is we've allowed developers to not build any of that base,
Yeah,
or, you know, to have any standards if it's been a private way. So it's not really been a class 5, class 6 road situation. It's been totally different.
right.
And so these, like you were just talking about, Bill, those lots in Moose Run up around the circle.
Yeah.
There should have been a vote by the Board of Selectmen, and there should have been a release of liability statement that was signed, and we didn't do that. So but that's really the only place in town where that particular situation has occurred on that
That I'm
scale.
aware of, right, but we've got country lanes, I mean, we've got,
Yeah.
you know, down next to the next to the library, I don't know what
Yep.
in the world that is.
Yep. Gaines
It's
is all,
town maintained, we
Oh, town.
plow it, but it's a private, and I don't know what the lot sizes relative to that are, or it's
Right.
just confusing, an old hang-on.
You mean the one that goes down past the tower?
Yeah, the dirt
Tower
road,
Road.
right,
Tower, whatever that's called?
yeah,
We plow that?
yeah,
No, I didn't know it was down.
we
Well,
plow
there
it
was
out
a-
of tradition.
no, there was a different statute that was involved for emergency access.
Yeah.
So,
So
So
what
that's
I,
why the town plowed.
yes,
so what I need to know is what you wish you had, what you wish the regulations
That's right.
allowed, didn't allow, so that I can make.
Well, I'm going to even make it more complicated. The problem is, don't lend themselves, because we've had one after another of roads up there crumbling and falling apart.
Well, roads don't last forever though. I mean, they do after 10 years, they die. That's why the town shouldn't be accepting them. I mean,
That's why we have to be really careful what we do.
And inspect the construction as it's going on, to make sure that
We,
the basis.
we have the right to do that now, I think.
Yeah, it's built into your sort of,
So you need a list of what we want to do.
do you like that you allow driveways to serve 4 lots?
I do, because I'm living on one.
at least they're honest.
Well, but as long as it is a driveway and it is designated as a driveway and we, the town, are not responsible for it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, but
It's something that's pretty much unique to Waterville Valley, and it has so many of them. And one of the reasons is because of the terrain.
Right.
You do get into the terrain like we have up here, you really are limited to big active access to big view.
About accepting it as a
about
road,
accepting it
yeah.
as a road,
There's that.
because they have ultimate authority. And even if the selectmen are recommending don't do this, if the town meeting votes to do it, then we're stuck with maintaining the
Right.
substance. And
Even if
That's-
you've got,
Yeah,
on
but then the
even if with
residents have a
this,
right to do that.
condition subsequent that we have, or maybe,
no, and yes,
even if it says
mhm,
it has to be brought up to town standards before we accept it, that's overridden by the town vote.
my understanding in my conversations with town council, town meeting's authority is ultimate. And they can override.
They can override a recorded document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we wanna put it in there anyway.
We want to put it
Because
in there.
helps, but,
Yeah,
yeah. Push
and we would
this out,
argue
they could-
vehemently, but,
They could get out of it.
you know,
I say stay tuned.
Obviously, ideally, all the roads would be built to town standards. And you still wouldn't impinge on lot size because you could make the lot size go to the center of the road. So you could still have.
Well, I'm not
some
saying
lots.
that's the reason the lot size is impinged, is because of the terrain, and there's only so much.
buildable
Yeah,
land.
you have to get from the road to the structure.
Yeah.
And it can be a long way on a steep lot. If the road's up here and the structure's down there, it's just,
But wait, how does a town quality road versus a not town quality road make a difference?
well, it has to be wider, and there are certain grade restrictions that you have.
Right.
So it's the grade restriction.
The grade
Grade
restrictions, the
restrictions
base
and the
material,
Yeah.
that all
Drainage.
adds to it adds to the
That's the
cost. And
cost.
You need
Right.
swales, you need.
swales, you need drainage, proper drainage.
But
That-
these things fall apart and then you've got nothing
Well,
to get to your house.
I know.
So, you're not better off. You're not better off with the not town road that fell apart, are you?
Well, non-standard town roads don't necessarily fall
You
apart.
know.
It has to do with the sub.
Right.
My experience, I guess I should say.
Well, it's been my experience, I mean, once in a while we have to redo ours, but, it certainly isn't up to the standard by any standard. But it holds up, large vehicles and so forth. So you're kidding yourself if you think you're gonna be able to make a road and then never have to attend to it.
So
I don't
let's
think
say
anybody's
for,
saying we are.
I mean, you're gonna have other opportunities to discuss the draft, but, so let's say for now, you're gonna have the driveway sort of 4. what's this internal access thing that's
Internal
also a
road?
separate animal? What,
We hope you know.
What the
Well,
internal- internal road?
that would be like within the condo developments.
wait, does
There
that have
are
its own
access-
standard?
It had a width standard. It did not have any base material or anything like
So
that.
that would,
But there was a width standard that was that was less than a town maintained road
yeah, I
width
saw
standard.
that, but I didn't know.
That was
Deborah-
Deborah Way.
Deborah Way or all the
All the condos.
all the condos,
All the condos.
the ways that go in between their parking
The-
lots and
right.
get them in and out of the condo development.
Tri-pyramid, for example.
Tri-Pyramid, Windsor Hill,
Yeah.
Village condos.
But
All
And
of
there
those.
are,
Understand that
there
there's
are
a-
public safety considerations.
Yes, that's what I was
too,
gonna
those-
ask.
There were,
Those parking
yeah.
lots and the rest,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
you gotta be able to get a fire truck in.
yeah, but she was asking what did we mean by an access way, but those are the access ways we were.
So ideally, we set this up, but not in the ideal way for public safety.
We'll have to see what the draft says. We don't say, right now, we don't tell the developer how to build those access ways. They can put any base material they want in it. They can do anything they want as long as it's X feet wide.
And that's
Okay,
wide enough for public safety.
and yeah, and then
Well,
Chris
and the
has to
requirement that
certify,
Chris has to approve.
Chris has to say, yeah, that's
Pretty
right.
much anything he approves, we accept.
But what she's saying is build them so that you control the base material that's put in, not of the part, maybe not of the parking spaces, but at least of the access way.
I'm also just trying to get a better understanding of how you've used these terms in the past and how they're working for you.
So you're suggesting that in the regulations, there be a section for how roads are to be built, and you have 2 or 3 different roads.
Well, right now, I'm really just asking a question. You talked
Yeah.
about a driveway serving for, you talked about an internal road, and I was trying to understand when you use these different things and whether it's working for you.
I think what's happened, you know, I mean, it's gonna sound pretty cynical, is that the developer chose whatever terminology you want to best fit his example that he was trying to sell us on.
Yeah.
You know, and he would say, oh, no, this isn't a road, this is blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So we
Going
just need
forward,
to,
do we think that we should be doing that? And I don't think we should. Going forward. I think we should simplify it and make it as safe and reasonable as we can.
Well, we'll try to make it clear when you use each of those and what the expectations are. Because it isn't even anywhere really what you mean by an internal road.
Yep.
But,
Right.
but
Because things are gonna get redeveloped, so I think we should fix it.
Well, the first thing.
We'll
to
make
do
them
is-
clear.
The first thing to do is get definitions
Yeah.
as to what's what.
Yeah, I like to do those last because,
The last thing to do is to do the
definitions and the application requirements, decide what you want to regulate first, and then we'll make
Right.
sure that you have the right definitions and the right application requirements. So, the other thing on the docket was, I had handed out a spreadsheet with the setbacks and lot sizes and all to help you start thinking about density, and
is that meaningful considering that we don't really have anything left to do that with?
well, redevelopment is
Yeah, I suppose.
to think about, and
That's what's gonna happen next.
so you tried to tackle density and ended up having to back off on some of those amendments, and I think the idea was to revisit those concepts and see, what might be more acceptable to town meeting that you wanna go forward with. And you also had kind of set aside setbacks as something to look at. We didn't really address setbacks last year. You wanted to look at those all together. as a whole, so that's why I put them in this table. Does everybody have that?
Actually, I don't know.
And I highlighted,
Last week.
the change that you made at the last meeting, the red and blue. I don't have any more.
No, it's
So one question I have now is, what else is gonna be helpful to you to help you think about the setbacks and density issues for next month?
So I'm looking at the setback under C1. And you want to reduce that from 35 feet to 20 feet?
No, that was the one change on here that was made at the last time.
Right. We reduced it.
We were trying to get closer to zero lot line, actually, in the C1. That was kind of a
Are
compromise.
you,
There was quite a bit of resistance even just to get it down to 20.
Right, I think 20 was a compromise position. Some board members wanted to see the zero lot line, and 20 was a compromise.
Was 20 approved at town meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
yeah, so if you could blue, this is marked up to be what you have now. And Mark, you had explained the difference in some of these being from the travel way versus the right of way was because you don't know where the right of way is, or
That's
the travel way didn't end up in the right place in it, so it's kind of safer. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think at some point, we're in the process of the first step, but we're working to reestablish all of the right-of-ways by layout based on where the actual roads are right now. Because for town-maintained roads, we don't, when Jim and I look at the roads, they're not going anywhere appreciably different than where they are right now. You know, we're not gonna wholesale change where Tecumseh Road
Right,
goes,
yeah.
right? So we're taking the right of way that is shown on the tax maps, and we're contacting abutters. And if there's no resistance to it, the selectmen are laying out that road by state statute as to establish the lines for the right of way. And then once we do that across the entire town, then we can use the right of way for setbacks if we want. We won't have to use the traveled way.
Are you attempting in this process to change them?
No, we're not. We're trying to
just
establish
trying
them
to
where they
establish
are, where
that-
they are.
Where they are?
Yeah.
And you're using the definition of basically taking the existing road and adding X feet to it and saying that's our right of way.
No, yeah, but what we're doing, Bill, is we're looking on the tax map. In most
Right.
cases, there is a right of way. But when you go into the records or you survey that line,
Yeah,
you can't establish that line
Right.
definitively.
right.
So what we're doing is we're writing letters to the abutters. There is a process in state law for the selectmen to lay out a road, right? And just draw it basically on a map. And so we contact the abutters and we say, here's where we want to establish the right-of-way line,
so
and we want to lay out this road.
to clarify.
Yeah.
Because I'm slow and stupid. What you're doing is you're saying, okay, the way the deeds and other things were actually recorded
That's correct.
is less than spectacular,
That's correct.
right?
Yes,
We are not at this juncture.
Yeah.
Even though we could,
yeah,
but at this juncture, we're not actually planning on doing anything with that right of way. We're just making sure everyone understands that we have the right of way.
That's correct, and we're trying to get that we'll record those plans so
that's
that the surveyors can then definitively say where that line is
That it
on the ground.
actually makes sense.
What happens in the case where there's physical evidence that they're finding for the right of way is in a certain area, and the road is way off from going down the center of the right of way? Do you then change the right of way or do you change the road?
No, well, we haven't run into that yet, and I think what we would try to do is actually change the right of way because the road there isn't room to move roads around here. And that's very expensive to do. And quite frankly, if you ask most property owners, they think that the right of way is where the road is.
Yes.
So it doesn't hurt the landowner from their expectation. It's just setting that down. And the reason that we do that is the engineers won't design road repairs or whatever unless they know
Is the right.
that there's a right of way there for drainage and everything else.
So the right
So
of way gives,
it gives us the
Yes.
ability to do the work.
but it gives into the road location.
That's right.
Which should-
Yes, that's what we'd like to do. Yep. And quite all the way from the intersection of Valley Road to Cumster Road, all the way around to Village Road, right, down by the Valley Inn and down the hill and all that. We only found 3 differences where, the landowner was giving up a little or the town was giving up a little to line up the right of way. But it just makes it clearer going forward.
At some point, when you're done with that.
Yeah.
Will you give us some kind of something so that we know what it is, what you did?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because it's not gonna look very much different from our current tax maps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the 3 questions in here, were, and why we put them all together on one table is it logical how these all fit together? Is there room for change somewhere to increase the density in the VC and C1? And there was confusion, at least on my part, about this setback to height ratio.
Right. I think I understand it, but nowhere is it ever defined.
And does it mean the allowed height of the principal building or the
No, I
actual
think it's
height?
a sightline kind of deal, that if you're building let's suppose that you were building a main house, you could draw a hypothetical line down, and that would be other buildings have got to fall within that envelope, it's a goofy, but I can't find the definition of it anywhere in the regulations. But we use it all the time, setback to height ratio.
You do. How do you apply it?
I don't think we've ever had an issue that's come up. We're claiming you're not meeting the setback to height ratio.
So I think we should be trying to clarify that, or
Yeah, or get rid of it, one or the other. I don't know what in the world it.
Where are you finding that?
4 lines up.
Oh,
I know it's used in the context of fence, that you're allowed a certain fence height but as long as it's not with greater than the setback to height ratio. What the hell does that mean?
Well, I think that would mean a 6-foot fence has to be 6 feet from the lot line, wouldn't it?
I
If
don't
it
know
falls
what it
over,
means,
it's on
we
your
never
own
defined
property.
it. Right.
But we kind of flagged that to deal with this year when you were looking at setbacks as
Yeah.
a whole, I think. It's the one thing that just didn't. I read it to mean if,
Is Bill, so let's make it simple, all right? Is Bill absolutely right? Is this a line we should just?
No, No, you
Either-
do,
either
you do
really
feel
define it
that it's a
or get rid of it.
potential issue when you get into like standalone garages that are 5 feet from the property line. What's the height of that garage that's allowed? You know, and there's not a whole bunch of clarity. I think
But I'm
what
saying
they try
either
to
get
do
rid of
is-
it or do a better job defining it, one or the other.
Defining it,
Yeah,
one or
that's
the
the
other,
plan.
absolutely.
That's the plan, is to decide what you want and make
Yeah.
wording say.
But, you know, if somebody has got an outbuilding and he's got it right up on the property line, which is allowed, is there a height restriction? I think that's
So
where
if we
the
did it
setback to height
simplistic-
ratio
If
comes
we
in.
did it really simplistically and said that the setback to height ratio would mean that the height cannot exceed the distance from the lot line.
No, well, because there's lots of examples in violation of that.
Yeah, but we can always change it, Graham, we have waivers.
I don't know what it meant.
No, you can't, that's in the zoning. You-
Well, it doesn't even say
Oh,
the
wait,
setback to ratio would be 1, it doesn't tell you what the ratio is.
No, it doesn't tell you what the ratio is.
Well, it says it has to be the same as the principal, so I was looking at it, I mean, if I was your zoning officer, I would have said that meant the shed, the ratio of the height to the setback has to be the same as the house height to
Right.
its setback, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it means the existing house or what I'm allowed to build as a house. That's the piece
Well,
I would.
I'm assuming that, you know, like if you built a 35-foot home, and you were 20 feet from the property line, that's your setback to height ratio, and any of your outbuildings that are built 5 feet can't be any different than that ratio.
Yeah,
But I'm guessing, it's not defined as far as I know.
So that it doesn't block the site.
I don't know what it's intended for.
it would be. Another approach would be to have structures have to meet setback and define what's a structure and what's not a structure.
Can we get an example of like a similar rural community or resort town and what they use for this?
Yeah, lots, and none of them are gonna say this. I've never seen anything like this before.
On height ratio?
Makes us feel better.
Yeah, that's
Most of them are gonna have the setback be for structures and define what's a structure and what's not.
Right.
Some might say accessory buildings with a smaller setback and have a size limit on what that accessory building can be. So a garden shed, a little garden shed that you buy from Walmart or something could be closer.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was intended to prevent somebody from building a 35-foot high garden shed.
But those are really the two other ways to do it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like more you're going in that direction.
Well, because I call it a garden shed and use it for something else. That's the problem.
marijuana.
Backyard
No.
brewery.
Well,
Yeah,
if you look at the line over it, accessory building,
That's what's in my 35 foot.
a 6 with a 6 foot, and then make sure that we define accessory building something smaller than the big garage. Right, I mean, the way to get rid of that line is to just use the one above it, but make sure you define accessory building in a way that it's okay to, that it captures only things that are okay to be 6 feet from the line.
I think we have some work to do.
Yeah, right. Well, and the problem is, you know, when you get around to actually building something, you're gonna always find, you know, you get to the nuances of words and commonly understood definitions. And you can, you know, lawyers can argue anything.
And they do.
All right, I'll bring you some options to think about. Do you wanna think, like, make it your homework for the next meeting to think about, you know, how we might address the density to review the setbacks, because you did want to revisit the setbacks and make sure you thought about them as a whole. And second, to think about whether there are things that might be doable under the, to increase the density in the VC and C1.
I would suggest that we don't deal with that now. And the reason is we are trying to work on upgrading the master plan. So we ought to take a look at that in the context of developing the master plan statement that says we do or do not want to increase density in these zones.
But we know we do.
No, you see, we're gonna go back to that. When you say we know we do, there's disagreement about that.
There is disagreement.
There's disagreement. And that's why I'm saying, rather than try to tackle into that, maybe we should,
In the commercial zones?
well,
But some of them.
Well,
just settle in.
let the, we're trying to work on the master plan. So if part of the master plan, we should tackle that question.
Very true.
I mean, otherwise you're tackling it backwards and making an assumption that we want to increase density. I'm not saying it's wrong,
So
but I'm just saying,
what's your public engagement process for the master plan?
we're just in the beginning stages.
Because that might be, when I do a master plan for a town and there's a sticky issue like that, I like to facilitate a public discussion on that issue to help the planning board.
Yeah.
We already had quite a discussion.
Right.
Well,
From one section
You
of
did
public.
not have
Yeah.
a discussion about that.
But if you think about all the
Yeah.
people that came to those zoning hearings had an opinion, right? And if you could get them to come help work on a solution of, what does fly, what would they be comfortable with? I think that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, I suspect, like every other town, we've got a lot of people who just like it the way it is, and other people who are dealing with, and we're gonna have to put together a very sharp argument to convince the people who I just like it the way it is to change their mind.
Right.
It's not gonna be easy to do. Well, my opinion,
The status quo has tremendous momentum.
I mean, I think we've been fortunate that there's been little pressure on development, or otherwise there are a lot of people who don't want the view of the center of the town to change at all. I mean, that's it. They said, why can't we pass a law that says you can't do anything?
That's what we heard when we went to the
Support.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
the state planning board conference. The first thing that the moderator said is that we constantly deal with this thing called banana. Build absolutely anything near anything at any time.
Right.
It was a great.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It
it
was a
was
great
awesome.
conference, but I never heard that before, but
Yeah.
it was,
Banana.
banana
Very
is
good.
absolutely consistent with everything that we encountered.
Yeah.
Maureen couldn't have been from north of here. So, I mean, all the other towns were dying for change.
It was,
Well, there are some that aren't.
yeah, you're in the transition. From
Oh, I know.
From the northern, with the southern, right here now.
No, I know.
We want the money. We don't want the building.
Well, they're mutually exclusive,
Yeah.
so.
So, in number one below, retail exception.
We might have got rid of that last time. I was noticing that. I'm gonna check it. Didn't we get rid of that last time?
The commercial building,
Oh, I never
primary
know.
retail shall be exempt from setback, open space and building price.
I thought that was deleted in the last amendments. I
I thought
gotta
we
check
wanted
that.
it was.
I have a note to check
We got
that.
rid of it?
I think it was. It was, but it was tied in with the.
Tied in with
remove
thinking
the
all of them
setback
have no
requirement,
setback.
exactly.
That's why I've gotta check
Yeah.
that, like, double check how it came out.
Because that overrode this one, so.
So you gotta decide, I guess, whether you wanna think of the density. Setbacks, you definitely had said you wanted to take a good hard look at this year all together, so this is your tool for doing that.
Okay, so as our homework, we have review setbacks, but Bill doesn't want to do his homework on the density. So I'm
Just a
not,
suggestion, and you can do whatever you want.
I have a tendency to agree. I think the master plan, we should address it in the master plan first.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
Is that in the housing group that has to do that?
I don't know, probably touch base.
Well, the problem is it's everything. When you talk about economic development of the valley, you gotta, you're gonna get down to what do you want? What's your vision of what economic development looks like? What do you want to allow and not allow? Right? So I think it touches lots and lots of areas.
Yeah.
Well, it can be considered in any one of the sections by anyone.
Right,
And
and
maybe
it will
all,
be, and it should be, yeah.
Hence, it should be in the vision statement.
Yeah.
The overreaching statement for all of the chapters.
Yeah.
Just as long as the vision statement doesn't get too long.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a suggestion for homework, I think we ought to go back and make sure we're clear on streets. We talked about it briefly, but, what do we want?
All right, so review the street.
Definitions of streets and private driveways.
So I think as I work on that in the subdivision regulations, then it will make sense to circle back to the
Oh,
zoning and
okay.
make sure that they come out
Yeah,
the
they
same,
come up the
Yeah.
same way.
right.
Yeah, because it's just, I know in the past, it's come up, and we get hung up on it sometimes.
Yeah,
And we need clearer definitions of
And any of the,
public versus private.
do other towns that you deal with, Tara, do they have anything like this ratio?
no,
And one thing, maybe we get rid of it because I don't know how to define it.
I can see the purpose of it though.
Yeah, right.
I can do it.
Because, if you're gonna have it, shorten the setback to 10 feet, you don't want this tall thing where you can't see anything else, if you like the wall. So I can see if you're standing there and you're going back 35 feet, and the height of the main building is right here. That if you come closer, like a shed or something, you'd want that to be shorter, just, so that it doesn't interrupt.
I'm assuming that setbacks, the definition what's the purpose of the setback? The purpose of the setback is, I assume, to prevent a building from overpowering,
Yeah, you don't want an alleyway.
the adjacent property.
right,
Yes.
shading it, you don't want it
Right.
shading it. That's
So
where
I
the
think you
height
have
is.
to think about, would we wanna, we allow auxiliary buildings to have lower setbacks, so.
Well, you were gonna check on that. to see if
Yeah,
you
I'll
find
bring
something.
some examples of how it might look.
But one of the things we were trying to decide was in the commercial zone, that there was advocation for like zero setback.
Right,
That you could build your storefront right there at the edge of the road as it was defined. And then that made sense commercially.
I thought that we actually had that.
you made it 20,
It didn't pass.
It did pass, that was it, okay.
That was one of Rocket's discussions.
So are we done with that or that is?
Stop that on.
well,
Well, I think it should be part of the discussion, so maybe it's just the way it was presented.
Yeah,
Advocated again,
try better.
try better.
well, I think that's part of what I meant for your homework for next month. would be to Look at all the setbacks and see where there might be opportunity to tweak some things toward more density in this one. And toward clarity, and I'll bring some examples for how you might deal with accessory buildings.
Okay.
So speaking of homework, Harry, what's your expectation around the master plan? So we have our, subgroups, of doing the work. Is that something for next month or following month? I'm just not sure what the
Well,
timing expectation is.
At this point, we haven't put any schedule together. I don't know. We can give a report at each meeting, see where we are. Make a decision as to, when we think we can start.
Do a workshop.
Yeah. But we've been trying to meet at least every month, maybe a couple times a month.
I don't think we're gonna make any progress in this.
No.
We meet about every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're gathering stuff together and,
Now, do we have any response
putting-
from, remember we were sending out letters to business leaders in the community?
Well, that was just your group, Bill.
Yes,
And we do have responses.
good.
You need to get your subgroup together to
yeah,
talk
we,
about
I
that.
think up to this point, it's been gathering information.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
Had you thought about a public visioning session or?
We talked about it in our group, anyway, in the housing group. I'm not a great believer in it, because my experience has been when we have these public forums and so forth, that it's not a representative group to begin with.
And it wanders.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I think too much weight is given to the responses that you do get in those. I think that it's not a true representation.
No, I found, my experience has been that they've come out pretty spot on for what the planning board would have written if they'd written it in a closet. And also in line with what you get if you do a follow-up survey. How I often do them is have people come in and write down the couple things that they value most about the community. And then kind of, you can organize those in the same half a dozen or 8 groups. And then facilitate the discussion, being, well, what do we need to do to hold on to that attribute? What's threatening it? What do we need to think about for that? And
You can take one written statement at a time. And
yeah, one
discuss it.
category. So like, say, one category here ended up being the skiing, right? Or the views or whatnot. So then you take 10 minutes to just talk about that category and how people brainstorm on what they're concerned is threatening it, what would enhance it, how you could make it stronger feature for the community, more of an asset. That actually, we use my method for all the regional plans in the state for the visioning part. I think it's real effective because you can't, people don't know what a vision is. You have to be talking concrete things. And I don't ever use the word vision in the visioning section. I want to talk about what do they care about the community, what do they value, what's the most important thing, and what concerns do we need to hear about that, and also some good ideas come out of those in terms of the brainstorming. What do we need to do?
Well,
Just a thought.
we should probably not wait too long to put one together. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. It's good that that's like facilitated rather than going out and saying, here's some of our ideas, so they can, rather than getting
Right.
defensive, just let them talk. It's a great idea.
What would be the process to get something like that going, Mark, as far as public notice or something like that?
We can notice it however you want us to. We can do, everybody points to doing a mailing and personal contact. I think 90% of what we send to people, other than their water and sewer bills and tax bills, they're not looking at anyway. I say, put it on Facebook, put it on Jan's blog, and put it on the town website, and you're gonna reach just as many people as you would with a direct mailing to 1,400 people.
But we should be putting together an agenda before we do.
Oh, yeah, no, you need
That
a
would be
plan.
input from each
You
one
need
of
a
the
plan,
groups,
yeah.
Probably, so.
I have a funny question.
September, October is a good time frame to get people together. The summer people are still here. and the winter people are starting to come up and get ready for the winter, so.
I wouldn't jump the gun and have input from the groups. I think this is helps guide the groups.
Yeah, I think you should get it earlier rather than later.
Where you just sit down in front of the public and you say, okay, what do you guys wanna do? I mean, it would seem to me you're gonna have certain specific,
Well, no, that's what she
She's
just
talking
said.
big general direction,
Yeah,
vision
That's
kind
good.
of stuff. She's
Blue
not
sky
talking
thinking.
about the land use chapter. She's talking the bigger picture. We're still working on our individual chapters.
I don't think you would divide it up into chapters. That wasn't my suggestion. My suggestion was that if you want to have answers for your particular group, then you ought to have a question.
No, I would only
That's
ask
not
the
that.
one question, what
Yeah,
do
one
you
question.
care about? in
Part,
Waterville
part
Valley?
one, vision of the valley.
Yeah,
What do
that's-
you like about
Right.
Waterville Valley?
yeah, what do you like?
Chapter's not gonna
Right.
cover
Yeah,
it.
plain speaking.
And that'll only take 6 or 7 hours.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
2.5.
Yeah, the visioning stuff
what?
is what she's talking
We need a
What
really
I
good
usually do.
No, no,
facilitator.
no, I
So
understand.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
about.
in addition to what, Mark, would it be inappropriate, because something that a lot of people read other than that is the wigwam.
And the wigwam, sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
it,
Post it at the post office.
post it
Sit
at
at
the
the
post
post
office,
office,
all the
yeah,
routine,
yeah,
all the routine, but I would also, if you can, talk to Mike
Yeah.
Virgil or your esteemed husband, who's also an editor, right? Just put it in the wigwam.
Yeah.
Everybody reads the
Well,
wigwam as soon as it
no,
comes
no.
out.
the residents, you're gonna get a very narrow band of opinion from the people who read the wigwam, I think.
No, I'm not saying don't do the others.
No, we gotta
We'll
do the
contact,
other.
like, the BBTS.
BBTS, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways to reach out to people.
Right. And
So,
so we should do all
the
of them.
main question when you sit there and you start the meeting is what? What's the main question?
So I have people fill out, I give them an index card.
On the way in or
usually on the way
something?
in, and have them write on each one. And it kind of go by field, whether it's 2 or 3, how many you gonna have time for what size of group, but let's say 2, and have people write 2 things that they care about the most about Waterville Valley, and then you can take all those and organize them into categories, and you might end up with 6 or 8 categories to talk about, and then you wanna have a facilitated discussion, and, something that I can do that for you. Make sure you get people's concerns and thoughts and input on that topic.
Kind of whiteboarding it.
And that's how you, I like to do it, I like to have a scribe that types it so it's on a projector that
Yeah.
everybody can see what's being covered. And
But
also can say, whoa, that's not what I said or meant, or I wanted to add to that, or.
We gotta be very careful that it doesn't have somebody come along with my personal beef is. This is a general discussion for the valley in
Well,
general.
that's how you
not
have the
yours.
facilitator try to keep it focused
Right.
on, and you might have somebody wander off, and the facilitator needs to kind of think,
Pull
come
back.
back for a minute and pull back, yeah.
Are you the facilitator?
Oh, yeah.
I love doing them.
Sounds
Been
great.
there, done
This
that,
sounds
right?
great. And the meeting's like, what, 2-3 hours long? Something like that.
2 for that, yeah.
Yeah, this sounds great.
And you have to have snacks.
So
That's how you get snacks, that's how you get people.
Free snacks?
Free pizza.
That's how you get people. I did this in,
to feed them, they'll be there forever. No, I'm just kidding.
You know,
I'm just kidding.
the town of Randolph, you know how small that is? We had a table heaping with,
Yes.
because they all baked things for it. It was beautiful.
Because then you only get opinions from hungry people.
We had, no, we had a packed drum.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
We had a packed drum in Randolph.
This sounds great.
Okay, sounds like you have a job, Charlie.
I think this is really important. I think people will actually be interested in what we're doing if they can participate.
Great.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it's a end of September.
Well, that's the time when we can get the right people.
Right, end of September.
it become a social event.
Right, then people can kind of follow the master plan process too, right? You can put a draft of the vision up on our website and
Yep.
people have feedback. And then you have your kind of march.
Is this a
orders for your
midweek or a
section.
weekend?
Yes, it will be a little.
It's a Saturday night.
It's a Saturday evening?
I would have
Well,
said a Saturday
afternoon.
morning, but
Morning? No, not around
whatever,
here.
whatever's best in your
Yeah,
town.
I think here it's gotta be like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock kind of thing on Saturday, after they've recreated and had the day.
Except you gotta stay away from dinner hour.
Well, whatever.
Just, that ain't
We-
gonna get too many hungry people.
Well, that's where the
That's the snack.
The snacks.
bring in potluck.
Yeah.
cookies.
Potluck.
Happy hour.
Yeah, that.
No
that's-
happy hour.
Six
Not
to
one
eight.
drunk people making
6 to 8.
these decisions.
6 to 8 is a good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
You guys pick the day and tell me and we'll start advertising.
And I'll just have to look at their schedule too.
Yeah, any Saturday, September's probably.
I'm looking. How about the 21st?
Okay.
Okay, 21st of September,
Sounds good.
Saturday evening. Which is actually a long weekend, so you could have even more people.
Why is it a long weekend?
Why does my calendar say that's Veterans Day?
September?
Thursday's November.
November 11th.
Mine says, whatever.
No, what are we, what are
It's
we
probably
calling
Veterans
this?
Day in some weird
But
country.
September 21st is good.
Yeah,
Saturday.
Block for 24.
What are we calling this meeting?
Visioning meeting for the.
future vision of the valley.
No.
Well, just, I mean, the fact that it's a public, it's not a public hearing, it's a.
Master plan.
Master plan, vision. I don't know, what do you like to call it? What gets people here?
Resident
Sarah?
focus.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I'm not sure ever run into the question of what to name it.
Well, it's kind of like a master plan.
Master
It's like a
plan,
focus group. It's
public-
like a resident focus group or something.
public input, master plan, public input.
I usually would title the notice with a question, is why I guess I was stuck on the question, like, what do you want Guano Valley to look like in 20 years?
Yeah.
What I'd want to see as the title,
That's an interesting title.
or, whatever,
I would say
something
10.
more like that is what I would
I would
use
say
for
10,
a
not
title.
20.
I think,
Future
if I see
Future of
visioning
the Valley.
session, I'm not coming, it's just not,
Yeah, future, the future of the valley.
Future vision of the
future
valley.
of the
Vision
valley,
of the valley.
planning board needs your help.
I don't want to say that.
Why? What's wrong with the vision of the valley?
No, I don't think vision of the valley. I didn't like planning board.
Oh, no, I think that's a subtitle,
right.
kind of in the
Right.
description.
Future vision of the
Planning
valley.
board starting master plan update, we need your help, what do you want Waterville Valley to look like in 20 years?
Community input.
Just call it, yeah, community input.
Very dry, but I can fit it in my calendar.
Well, that isn't what's gonna be on the notices. We'll work with Tara and come up with a good question.
5 PM on the 21st.
Six to eight.
Six. By that time, everybody's done their hiking, whatever. Come back, taking their shower, bake their cookies. Well, everybody agrees on.
Now, do you have a meeting place for big meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use the all-purpose room.
The all-purpose room.
Yeah.
Multi-purpose.
It's a nice
room at the
place.
school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is that the one with the stage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got a kitchen.
And it's got a big overhead projector.
Yeah, but got a pretty nice. We're buying a new piano, musical piano. whatever they call it.
I'll make a
So Tara, from this point on, you'll do whatever is necessary to get this thing.
Work with Mark. Yep.
Yeah.
Good, great, fun.
Right? That's all you had for this subdivision regulation review today?
Yeah, I think I can get started on it now.
Okay. Next is the, thank you, Tara. Next is the committee reports, the town core group. We're here from the town core group today. I don't believe so.
Well, Wendy's not here.
Wendy and, who else?
I am Marcus.
Oh,
Mark did great effort. I think you probably talked to more people than anybody. You said you talked to 25 people.
Yeah, around 25 families.
Yeah, over
People.
July. When
The
the
boards
stands were
were-
out with the poster boards with information on what the project is going to be. I stood out there for a little while and talked to one family, 2 people. I think everything was positive. And Wendy said, I think there were 6 notes, and some of them were on topic, some of them were off topic. But the ones on topic were all positive. So,
I think we should get it out to bid and see where the bids come back. And we should try to do the project this fall for the village trail,
yeah, I mean, it made perfect
if we're
sense.
within budget. I'm skeptical that we're gonna be within budget, but stranger things have happened. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna. Contractors are asking top dollar and getting it, so. It's just a very hard, unless you are way out on their calendar, you're gonna pay a lot. But we can see.
And they're looking for big jobs.
Well, they're looking for big jobs and we never have big jobs here, and so it's gonna be a struggle, but we'll see what happens. You know, maybe they're looking for some filler for a week or 2 and we may luck out.
Can't hurt to try.
Can't hurt to try. And then we can figure out if we're gonna ask the town for more. So.
Yeah. That's fine.
But I think we've made some good progress. We've got a good plan for the village trail. And there'll be 4 lights, there'll be 3 signs,
Does the
and a
plan-
lot of work on the trail itself.
So it's been resolved how you're gonna get up over the river,
Up over the river.
up over Snowbrook?
No, we're stopping at Snowsbrook Road. We're not going up over the road. We're not going all the way down to the Mad River. We're just doing between the dam and Snowsbrook Road
Down.
on the village trail,
Okay,
the one that runs
Yeah.
right along Snowsbrook
right,
itself.
so this doesn't include the pond trail?
It does not. No,
Right.
there definitely is not enough money for that.
Okay,
And we didn't want to do any of that work until we can sit down with the Sununu group, now that they own the land. And until we can figure out how to build a trail that isn't gonna get dug up in the next 2 or 3 years.
and so Tim indicated that that has closed, that
Yeah, the land
purchase.
purchase has closed.
Okay.
We just have not had any contact from the Sununu group yet about sitting down to look at their master plan and see how this all fits in potentially with.
Okay, thank you.
Closing price public?
No. Well, it's not anything I know. I don't think it's public.
You could probably get.
We will be able to tell when we get the deed.
Okay, Conservation Commission, that's John.
That's John.
Anybody else on that committee? You're not the conservation committee.
No, I have nothing to do.
Master plan review committee. All right. I don't know, does anybody have a report from their committee that they want to share? I know the housing, we were just finishing getting the data together, and Bill was able to find a pretty good state survey online for New Hampshire. Involves housing and so forth, so we're putting that stuff together, but we're not really.
I've called realtors,
Yeah,
in particular, are looking for the rental pricing by category. And realtor said, there simply just isn't enough of it here to be statistically relevant.
really.
Yeah,
That was the comment.
and the other thing I found when I made some calls is that with the exception of 2 or 3 other locations, we are so dissimilar.
It's absolutely right.
I mean, it's so dissimilar from almost any other location. Even if you want to talk about Jackson, for example, Jackson is dissimilar from us because they have so many inns, options that are functioning inns, all right, that serve and everything else, they are so different from us, for example. All right, so, you know, where do you say, okay, where is there in New Hampshire, in central northern New Hampshire, that is similar to us? And
There is some data, but the Resort Association, especially for the hotels, and actually they report on it every month at
Right.
their meetings. So that's the only place I know of, but there is at least some data there. But increasingly, and I've worked along with the Fontes family who owns the rink and runs the tournaments, and they're having a tremendously hard time here, and they're kind of turning towards, which I'm hearing more and more people getting into Airbnb, which totally hides the numbers because then it's all individuals. But I know even up at Noon Peak, 2 people are doing it relatively full time, and I think a couple other units out of 40. So you've got 10% of your people actually doing Airbnb. And I know the hockey organization, because of the rules with the hotels, that no more than 2 hockey teams, per, just because I've come from a hockey family, I know why that is. But he's having to ship down to Plymouth and Lincoln, and he's turned to Airbnb solution so he can keep everybody here, because that's the whole experience why youth tournaments here are so cool. But just a thought on the Resort
but they
Association.
don't have that necessarily. They have more than 2. They have a lot at Black Bear, for example. We're bringing.
Yeah, there's some limits in each one. I
Yeah.
think he was saying Eagle only lets 2 teams because they don't want their hotel destroyed, by the low hockey, rink rats. But no, he was telling me that's a real problem for him. It's really taken away from the experience. Because I know I brought my kids up to these tournaments when they were little guys, and it reminded me how much I love this place. It's one of the reasons maybe
I didn't know that was true at Black Bear and Eagle. But
may not be a Black Bear. I'm not sure.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
About limited 2-family score, I don't think so from what I've seen.
I'm not.
No, but they do need to work on a way to fix the issues.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm sure Black Bear would love the business, but the parents are not being responsible. So then what do you do?
I know, and it is somewhat the culture of the hockey world. It doesn't matter where those tournaments go, and they get worse when they get into the early mid-teens. But yeah, again, it's a frat party for the parents, and I know there's problems everywhere they have hockey, but they bring in money.
The senior hockey.
Yeah, that's right. We should bring them in.
The worst are the skiers.
Really?
Well, I mean, just by the calls and for service from public safety and everything else, the teams or the groups that have caused the most physical damage and the most problems have not, while they're sometimes obnoxious, they don't cause the most actual calls for service.
Skiers.
It's, yeah, I mean, per capita, it's skiers.
Interesting.
So, I
Good
mean,
thing skiers don't play
it's like, well, but no, it's like, I think we have that perception because they come in a very large group and they come, you know, at certain times of the, you know, for the tournaments on those weekends. So they hit us all at once. But when you look across the calls for services, they don't stand out as a problem group.
The other thing, when you talk to some of the people in the resort groups and whatever else, without the hockey weekends.
Yeah.
Non-weather dependent,
Non-weather
all those
dependent.
teams' parents already paid their $250 in August, they're coming.
They're coming.
And they're here, and they do go, and they do use the athletic facility, which
Tubing.
gives them some money. They
Food.
do hit the pizza place, they do go up to the Coyote, it brings money to the valley.
I think though, regardless, I think you have to face the fact that within 2 years, it's over anyway.
Maybe.
Because of the arena.
What do you mean?
I don't know how to maintain that arena.
Well, actually, the town doesn't.
And they don't now, but they have in the past.
Yeah.
And it's been tremendous losses every year. And the only reason that they got the hockey tournament now is because they've gone through a lease purchase situation, or rent purchase, I should say, which it's my understanding is going to come to an end in another year or so. And I don't think the purchase is going to be made.
But the question is whether the
Qantas
lease
is
will
think
be
they
extended.
own it. or else it's what it's saying.
The people that I've spoken to is, you're right, the purchase is not gonna happen, the question is going to be, and again, Mark will obviously know a lot more about it, is whether or not there will be an extension of a lease. All right,
We'll see. We're
I mean-
talking to them now.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That I heard both sides from the people I talked to, but the ongoing discussion about maintaining them here in some way.
Yeah, the SCI group that study Cantlin had done for the village, it had the rink staying.
Yeah.
And I think he sold that study along with the land, so who knows?
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up a couple of quick updates, and I know we're like over, but the Historical Society, we're planning on, in our master plan is to work towards a museum or some kind of annex down in the village. Rich picked up that the land over by the Osceola Library might be, a great candidate for us to fundraise and build it. That got out in the Osceola Library Committee. They, of course, heard a bunch of things, and we were going to be attaching a museum on top of it, just all kinds of things. Rich set up a meeting, and, I went for the Historical Society, and then they came. And we worked through everything. Everybody walked away happy. But Historical Society is looking for that. 5 years would be aggressive to be able to do that. But we are thinking about the historical documents that we have are really stored here. Fire protection, environmental protection. We need a storage place first and foremost, so that we can take most of the historical documents are in artifacts are at Dartmouth. And we want to just get them here, and then we have a phase plan to museum. So that'll be coming down the road. The other thing, Mark, I need to grab a couple minutes from you. So there has been a nonprofit, it's in approval, it takes about 6 months for the chapel.
Right.
So we have a board put together for that. Bertie Britton's and Tom Gross are driving that. We're looking at it now. We're not to a point of engineering. We're really going to get our fundraising act together, which, Tom, and I'm going to help Tom, lead that. But, it seems like, the board is very connected people. Jack Landers, is it? Sanders. Yeah, I just met him last night. But it's I think a good group that can seriously raise some money in some short period of time. So first, we're going to get our communication act together before we go out with our good, clean story, raise money. And, I walk out of those board meetings kind of feeling pretty confident, you know, that this thing's really gonna happen. Yeah. Anyway. Couple of things.
Anyone else? Okay. Nick, any communications that should be dealing with? No? That being the case, I thank you all for coming. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
How fast could that happen?
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Nick, you're gonna send something out to everybody about 19